on like 2.5x. That'd be a lot easier. It's like the end of those drug commercials where they tell you all the side effects.
We're all ready.
Oh, great. So my name is Paul Tagliaferri. I'm the chair of the Northborough Zoning Board of Appeals. It is June 27th and past the hour of 7 o'clock. This open meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Zoning Board of Appeals are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Zoning Board of Appeals to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along, use the posted agenda, unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of the meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Rutan.
Here.
Fran Backstrand.
Here.
Susie Cislika.
Here.
Brad Blanchett.
Here.
And Jeff Grabowski.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Fred Litchfield. All right, I can see Fred, but probably can't hear me. Robert Federico.
Sorry about that. Here.
Okay. So I guess we'll get to Fred in a sec when he gets his audio working. So just some basic ground rules for presenters and or applicants listed on the agenda. The chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so through the chair, taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board or committee will be conducted by a roll call vote. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. If you are dialed in by phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note that part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. If you are in by Zoom, please click raise hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Fred, have you been able to figure out your audio? Fred, can you hear us?
Ready.
I'm having a little trouble with my speakers. I'm trying
There
to
you go.
get connected. Hold on.
Fred, you're not off the hook just yet. Okay.
Why won't it work?
So Fred, we can hear you. I assume you can hear us.
I can hear you, but not the usual way. So I just need to mute myself so I can figure this out. I'll be right back.
Okay.
That's
I guess in the interim, we can sort of move on to the first case. So the first one is a continuation of the consideration of the petition of 78 West LLC for a dimensional variance for insufficient area, special permit to expand a non-conforming structure, special permits for multifamily use in the downtown business district and groundwater protection overlay districts 2 and 3, special permit to expand the use into a more restricted groundwater protection overlay district by no more than 50 feet, and a special permit with site plan review for a proposed multifamily expansion to an existing structure at 78 West Main Street, map 63, parcel 55. So the applicant has requested that we continue this case to the July 25th meeting. Currently, there are 2 cases for our July 25th meeting. And I was wondering if anyone has an issue if we start that meeting a little earlier in the day at 6 o'clock rather than 7.
I have no issue.
Yep, Mr. Chair, no objections.
No objections from me.
Okay. All right, Susie.
I'm good with
Okay.
it.
So then for this one, I don't think the applicant's here, but we can, if someone wants to make a motion to continue this to the July 25th, we can do starting at 6 p.m.
I make a motion that we continue this to the July 25th meeting at 6 p.m.
Second.
Okay, Mark made a motion to continue it and Fran seconded. Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Fran,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay. Fred.
I'm here.
Put that in
All
my
right.
phone right now.
Okay.
Okay, so just noting that Fred is also the other staff member that is present for this meeting. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the continuation of the consideration of the petition of NBI Northborough LLC for a special permit to expand a non-conforming use and special permit with site plan approval to expand an existing trucking terminal at 12,000 by 12,218 square feet and 20 loading docks and construct a new 10,780 square foot accessory maintenance facility on the property located at 300 Bartlett, map 67, parcel 7 in the industrial district. All right. And so this one, Peter. All right, Peter, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Is there anyone else I should be adding to this?
Yes. So on with me tonight from Northbridge Partners is Jeff Sullivan and Tim Irvin. They represent the ownership.
And who is the other? Jeff
Um,
Sullivan.
Jeff Sullivan and Tim Irvin.
I moved Tim in.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you all. Again, my name is Peter Ellison. I'm with TEC and I'm the civil engineer representing NBI Northborough LLC. And on the call with me from NBI Northborough is Jeff Sullivan and Tim Irvin, for the record.
Mhm.
I do have a short presentation prepared. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. So again, yeah, the project is located at 300 Bartlett Street. It's this parcel here in the aerial photograph. It's currently occupied by FedEx Freight. The purpose of the project is to expand the existing trucking terminal use by 20 bays, construct a 1,012 square foot break room, and then separately a new 10,780 square foot maintenance shop. Again, the purpose of that shop is exclusively for FedEx vehicles that are currently using and operating out of this site. I just want to remind the board of the request that we're in front of you for. So we are here requesting a special permit to extend a non-conforming use. This trucking terminal use was approved and permitted by right as a site plan approval by the planning board back in 2011. However, due to a zoning change in the time since, that trucking terminal use is no longer allowed. By right. So we're in front of you requesting to extend that use of the trucking terminal to add those 20 bays as I described. And also, I think the maintenance shop itself would qualify as an accessory to that use. So the zoning board of appeals may grant a special permit to extend or alter a non-conforming use in accordance with this section only if it determines that such extension or alteration is for a similar or less non-conforming use and that it will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. In making such determination, the zoning board of appeals shall consider whether the proposed use is different in character or in its effect on the neighborhood or the property in the vicinity. So I just wanted to bring this up because this is really the criteria that we're held to for this permit. The extension of the use is for the same exact use. So I think we qualify for that first, sentence there where it needs to be similar in use. In my opinion, the extension will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing. We've come up with, I think, based off the correspondence and our discussions at the last meeting, we know that the key issue on this one is traffic and truck traffic in and around the existing residential neighborhoods. So what we've tried to do is work with Lori and Fred to come up with a list of restrictions that we can put on the site, which I can read to you now. So FedEx Freight, FXF, will restrict heavy commercial trucks from entering, leaving the site from and to the west, with one exception being for deliveries to Lyman Street. FedEx Freight will restrict all heavy commercial trucks from driving on Bartlett Street between Lyman and Main Street. We'll agree to install new signage at the site driveway that will direct traffic east and better describe the restrictions that are in place. And finally, we'll provide driver and trainer education, driver training and education in their pre-shift meetings so that the drivers are aware of those restrictions. So with those four kind of bullet points there, I think at the end of the day, this project will actually result in an improvement over the current conditions. FedEx Freight, as it stands and operates today, does not have any restrictions on turning left, right. There is no restriction in place just because when this was originally constructed, it was, by right. It was about 10 years ago. So, and finally, the use is in character with the neighborhood. This is an industrial use. It's a shipping use, and it's located within the industrial zoning district and surrounded on all sides by industrial warehouse buildings. So coming out of our last meeting, we were able to sit down with the current tenant of the building, FedEx Freight, and separately, we were able to sit down actually with Amazon, who's our abutter and current tenant to the east, and Fred and Lori and town representatives were on that call as well. And basically what we found was Amazon was open to the discussion to providing some physical improvements at the intersection. However, through our discussions with FedEx Freight, we learned that they actually really, their business relies on making deliveries to Lyman Street. So this is Lyman Street here, just west of the property. It's the first public street to the west of their facility. So I put stars on these commercial businesses that are, potential customers for FedEx Freight. Based on our discussions with them, they on average see about 15 to 30 deliveries to Lyman Street per month. So, that averages out to about one delivery per day, with a peak of up to 3 deliveries in some days. And, it's all dependent on the orders that come through. That's not really within their control. So I just wanted to highlight to the board that, restricting that left turn out would really, hinder their operations because the route to get to Lyman Street, if you take a left out, it's less than a mile. It's about a 3-minute trip to get over here. and this stretch of Bartlett Street and Lyman Street, just wanted to note that those two streets are both located within the industrial zoning district. And when a truck driver does access this route, it is able to avoid this stretch of Bartlett Street that I know is very sensitive to the area, to the neighbors. And then this would be the alternative route. So if FedEx Freight was required to turn right, it's kind of a zigzaggy route that would take you west out down 495 to Route 9 and then take a right onto Lyman. So that route actually increases to 21 minutes and about 9 miles. So I think that's kind of the reasoning why we think it's a little bit unreasonable to restrict that left out of the facility. Something I did want to highlight through our discussions with FedEx Freight. My company, TEC, prepared a traffic study that meets all of the industry standards, and we use ITE trip generation and growth rates to try and estimate what the future traffic generation will be. And again, what we're saying is existing is 394. And then after the expansion, we would get to 563. So there would be a net change of 169 trips per day. So that's kind of the generic use of trucking terminal that is being used in that study. However, in this case, it's a little bit different because we know that the tenant is FedEx Freight. What FedEx Freight has told us their estimated trips are, now this is for equipment only, so this is their trucks, is 128 total trips per day with their trucks. Now that's quite a bit lower than what our study says. And the only reason I'm presenting this to you is just because it's a little bit odd where we know the specific tenant, however, we're permitting a general use at the site. So I think, I guess the takeaway is, we're showing you kind of a worst case scenario here with our traffic study, but the actual conditions going forward are probably going to be much better than that. And then finally, one of the design review board, our committee comments that we received was to replace, I think this FedEx Freight sign out front had busted. So they since those meetings happened, we were able to get out there and replace that sign. And so that is my presentation. I'd be happy to turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, for any questions.
Great. Thanks, Peter. First of all, I appreciate you guys fixing the sign. I know that was an issue for design review. So glad you guys got that taken care of so quickly. So I guess just real quick on the traffic study that was done, can you just pull up that slide one more time? So why and where was the disconnect between the two traffic studies? Can you kind of just explain that one again?
Yep. So in general, right, when we permit a use for a site, what we're using for the trip generation and for the future growth statistics in the area is based off of like industry standards and ITE trip generation manuals. So that's for a generic use of a trucking terminal. So that's kind of like the average across the whole entire industry. Whereas in this case, we know that the very specific user at the site is FedEx Freight. They have a very good handle on their specific trips, for that specific tenant. And in this case, it just so happens that what they're telling us is like their current facility is at capacity the way it is operating right now. However, they're not really expecting the number of trips going to and from the facility to increase by a whole lot. They just kind of need the space on the site.
Okay, so table 4 under existing and proposed is not really based on any factual data, but sort of industry standards that you guys use as a broad brush across multiple, or just generic delivery places in general. The idea, Mr. Chairman, is like
let's say that FedEx Freight left tomorrow, right? But we have an
Yep.
approval for a trucking terminal. So whoever that next user is that comes in, we need to be permitting this site and this use for the kind of industry standard.
Okay. And then the numbers on the left is just from, like, where does that data come from?
This is directly from FedEx Freight's corporate team.
Okay, over the course of, like, average, of course, of on a one particular day, on a weekday, weekend.
Yep. So I think this is their average daily arrival and departures, and it's broken down by hours. So you can see, it's kind of spread, during the hours of the night. There's really not much traffic going on. Mid-morning from like 9 to 11, there seems to be a peak, and then afternoon from like 5 to 7, there's a peak. This number here, 128, is their total daily equipment. So that's trucks coming and going from the site on average day. So this is what they're estimating in the future. It doesn't account for like employee trips to and from the site would be counted separately. But it's pretty easy to estimate those based off the number of parking spaces out there. They have, I think it's like 110 spaces, 116 employee spaces. So, if there's an employee coming and going from each space, that's 230. So, I think what they're coming up with for their projection is pretty close to what we're showing in our study is for the existing site, basically.
And Mr. Chair, this was only included just in response to the sensitivity on the traffic. This happened to be something that we got from FedEx to explain that they didn't really anticipate additional truck traffic. They are just at capacity and they're overusing the existing space, which is why they're coming to us for an extension. It's not intended to replace what Peter's already put in front of you guys.
Okay, so we should be using then what Peter has to sort of make our.
Yeah, it was more to alleviate concerns around truck traffic that we heard from last call.
Okay. All right. So I guess what I would say is, I do appreciate you guys being sensitive to the sort of the issues that exist and the concerns that both the town has, residents have, and I think for me personally, I have with trucks traveling between Lyman Street and Route 20. I think that there's been a CMRPC road audit done. There's been multiple meetings over the last several years, which have identified the issues with an abundance of trucks, traveling on that stretch of road. And so I do appreciate you guys sort of taking that into account. I think for me, the biggest concern I have, and I think that what your proposal there, at least at first glance, because this is sort of the first I'm kind of seeing of this, on paper does make sense to me. I think the concern I would have is, how does the town of Northborough enforce these conditions? Right, because I think Bob made the point last time, that it's very difficult to enforce a condition where you're sort of conditioning both the exit and entry of a truck at a certain site and then sort of making sure that they make a turn on a certain site, right? If Bob or someone is standing outside of FedEx and they see a truck make a left, well, that's theoretically allowed because they could then make a left at Lyman Street. Then if you put someone at Lyman Street and they see someone kind of blow by, it could either come from FedEx or it could be coming from Marlboro, right? So I think at first glance, that's sort of my concern on how best to mitigate that risk and sort of enforce that. But I don't know, Bob, I don't know if you have any, do you agree that that would be difficult to enforce?
I would agree with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep.
This is a hot topic in town, okay? This is a hot topic in town, and we just got an article about Palmer, town of Palmer, where a kid pulled out of his high school parking lot and got T-boned by an 18-wheeler. Okay. We want you guys to, be a good neighbor, and we want you guys to stay here, but that 1 mile stretch is a hot topic. How can you help us if we, and I don't think, I don't want to make a decision tonight. I don't, but how can you guys help us expand what you're doing, but you have to be a good neighbor to the rest of the town?
I think one of the things that would be, I can jump in, Peter, and I totally hear you, and that's terrible to hear. I did not see that article. Is what we can control is what we can control. If we zoom out here, we are surrounded by an industrial district here. All we can control within this site at this time is, in fact, to responding to the chair's specific request last time, we were asking for GPS modifications with FedEx, and that's not something that stops for us, but they do not have that capability to be able to put a block on a left or a right. But that was a specific request we ran down with FedEx Freight. This is something we completely hear, and we want to be a good neighbor. As Northbridge, we intend and hope to be investing further in Northborough in the future, whether it be existing stuff or new development projects. So we'll continue to work with FedEx Freight. We have engaged the regional managers, the local team. We've even engaged our neighbor, which is owned by Blackstone, right? We have no ability to control that. The thing that I think is important is, Peter, to talk about the safety at that left-hand turn. We actually were trying to figure out a way to program a no left turn there. It just didn't work from a streets perspective that anybody could all agree on in terms of turning right in for semis, and at the same time coming in on a left down Bartlett. It might make sense to touch on there, Peter.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we looked at, and this was before we had learned from FedEx Freight that they're relying on these, 15 to 30 deliveries to Lyman Street per month. Could we provide a curbing layout that would restrict the right turn into Bartlett Street, so that trucks are not, once they try it once, they would learn and figure out that they need to come the other way. The problem with altering the curb like that is it just causes safety hazards. Usually if a truck is really bold, what they will try to do is actually swerve out into the oncoming lane of traffic to create a wider swing turn into the site. We definitely don't want that to happen. And second, if they stay in their lane and that curbing is designed properly and they do try to turn in, they're going to have to slam on their brakes and basically come to a halt and come to a stop within Bartlett Street, which again, nobody wants a tractor trailer coming to a full stop on Bartlett Street where, cars are going 35 plus miles per hour. So that was kind of some of the challenges we saw with adding the physical curbing restrictions at the driveway.
Okay. I just have one more question, and then I'll let others on the board. So you are also looking to restrict sort of trucks coming in from the west as well, right? So like training to prevent them from making rights onto Bartlett from Route 20.
Yes. I mean, we've had those conversations starting the next day after our last call.
And then just one quick final one. Like, how does that training process work?
We wanted a written answer for that 3 weeks ago to send to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
What FedEx can do and is very active with They are remarkably bureaucratic for us to be able to get a written document that they can about that they will commit to. Of course, I mean, I can have them write anything on a piece of paper, but we want to make sure that they're being a good neighbor here too. They have a vested interest in also working with us. We have to make sure that this goes well. Because we are investing in this expansion. This is not FedEx. So we are going to continue to press on this. We have heard everyone loud and clear. Those 30 trips to the west in the way that they effectively try to do it, it's like that's the only concern we have with that left turn. They don't want to send anyone that way. The only other comment I would make in the past is folks have mentioned they've seen other FedEx trucks. We can't control other FedEx locations. All we can do is try to influence the one that we have here. And we will do that. We're willing to work with the town, both at the intersection where we can with Link Logistics next door and Amazon, but also within the scope of our property.
Okay, great. Susie, I see your hand is raised.
Good evening. Could you go back to that screen where it shows the Bartlett and that route that they have to take? Yes. So so my initial thoughts, and you might not have the answers to these right away, is what size trucks are making those deliveries? First of all, if it's, you know, the large, is it the large tractor trailers or is it the smaller trucks? And also the deliveries that they have to make, is it like on the beginning of a route? Is it at the end? Is it something that they can take a right and they can do at the end of a trip? That was one thing. Another is I just want to further remind, it's not just, you know, it's not just residential that's over there. And I know Brad brought it up talking about the poor child in Palmer. I'm just always going to repeat this every time you guys come, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Algonquin Regional High School has 200 to 300 parking passes issued every year. And by definition, those drivers are the most distracted drivers that you will find. And I doubt that they are going to be offering a driver class to just to deal with how to drive around tractor trailers when they're leaving school. So we have to be mindful of that as we sit here and we're making these decisions. I don't have students that are drivers, but I will someday. And I always think of them. And I also think about when you're leaving the high school, I know, you know, you guys must work near the high school, drive into the parking lot and see what they have for the curbs and everything regarding the turning, because they have things that you can't turn. I mean, it's right there at the high school. That make it impossible to turn certain ways in certain areas. And I was wondering if we could get input from the police chief as well. I know we have Bob. We're lucky enough to have Bob here to tell us how hard it would be to enforce. If we could ask the police chief about his ideas and enforcement. I don't know if he has the staff or you know, the police department or cameras or what that would cost, maybe from the select, if we could reach out to them, Mr. Chair. I don't know if that's an idea, or Fred, as he's our stand-in right now for Lori. And then I was asking, but I think you answered it, how many deliveries were going to that Lyman to turn left out of there? And you said it was 15 to 30 deliveries. Was it a month or a week?
Month.
Within a month. Within a month.
A month. Okay. I mean, because I realize you're in the industrial zone and FedEx is the only people that don't have, you know, that don't have conditions on them and everything. But as I said, it's like, this is a big issue in our town, and the high school is like right there. Like, you can see the parking lot right up on the map there. And I can't help but think of those drivers, and it's, you know, it's something we do have to think about and try to protect that area of the road. And that intersection onto Main Street too. It's just not built for trucks turning and everything else right there. So thank you.
Thanks, Susie. I guess either Fred for next meeting, we can maybe just ask the police chief if he has any comments about this proposed plan. But we could just make a note of that and have Lori send an email.
I've made a note and I'll talk to Lori when she returns.
Great, thank you, Fred. Fran, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to ask the applicant if I may, in lieu of the hard no right turn that didn't seem to work, there, it indicates that you would agree to provide new larger signage at the driveway. I was wondering whether we would be able to see what those look like for the next meeting, so we can see exactly how instructional they would be at the site, as well as what would be put at Lyman Street. And then also, I think you already touched on it through the chair, which was for the education of the pre-shift meetings. What actually does that entail with the drivers? Thank you.
Thanks, Fran.
I guess one question we have is, I guess what we're trying to figure out is how we're able to police and sort of install something that we can't really put over the entire growth of the industrial community within this town on our 10,000 feet of expansion on this site that we are not anticipating growing truck traffic on. We're trying to figure out how we can help you guys as a team mitigate what we can mitigate on our property. We can't do anything about anyone else driving on Bartlett Street. And I used to go to football games at Algonquin, so I know that high school well. What we're trying to figure out today is under what we're able to operate with under the zoning code is it a substantial change? Is it in conformance with the local landscape, and does it demonstrate a significant negative impact? I'm trying to figure out how we can help mitigate that, whether we're happy to work with everybody around signage, kicking this out further. I don't know that changes anything. We're happy to put in as a condition that we run it by planning or whatever the public works. I'm just trying to figure out what we're going to be able to accomplish in the next 30 days on a 10,000 foot expansion of an existing facility within a massive industrial park, and how we can mitigate that on our side. So that's where we're trying to figure out how to solve a very big problem on something that we can't, in a way that I can foresee. So I'm trying to figure out what we can accomplish in the next 30 days that gets people comfortable versus what we can maybe put into conditions that help everybody get comfortable that way.
Yeah, and I think what I would say is that is the question, right? I think that there's definitely an increased risk on that portion of Bartlett Street. We appreciate you guys coming in and trying to avoid all the the traffic and the issues there, but that is the ultimate question, because on paper it seems like it does make sense, but I go back to Bob's comments at our last meeting, and I have a lot of empathy for Bob in sort of trying to enforce what is effectively or extremely hard to enforce. So I think that's really the question. I think we kind of need to put our heads together and try to come up. Maybe it's more signage, if not just outside of the property, if it's located at Lyman and Bartlett, if it's located at Route 20 and Bartlett, or whatever the case is, and try to see what can we do to try to prevent that. What can we do to help Bob? But I think that's the ultimate question I think we would have there.
I'm just trying to think of how we police that for the town, right? I mean,
Yeah.
And the thing that because I want to make sure everyone understands, I'm not coming at that from an argumentative perspective. I'm trying to, we obviously do this a lot as well. And the thing that we run into is that we can't police off our property, right? Like we can't necessarily police behavior we can encourage, and we can, within the lease of which we are reopening here, put on the orders and conditions that this board helps us work with, right? But
Yep.
on the left out of the turn, I just, for 30 trips out of our site a month.
Yep.
To slow up getting it. That's what I'm trying to figure out is 30 trips a month going to Lyman Street, which is a industrial zone that gets left turns onto it, whether or not it comes from our site. And those are larger trucks, just because it's a freight facility. Those are usually for larger packages. What we're trying to figure out is how we can utilize the orders of conditions in a way, because FedEx is in, they just can't, they don't operate that way in terms of being able to just throw something down, because when they write it down, they want every one of you to believe that that's exactly what they're going to do, right? So I'm trying to figure out how we can take this 10,000 foot expansion and get folks comfortable with industrial traffic for how many millions of square feet that have been built in town. So I'm at a loss on my side, and I'm trying to figure out how to make everybody comfortable, because we're really just talking about 30 trips taking a left here a month. And as you see from Peter's distribution, the intent is not to have that be during school at the truck traffic at the specific times. And if you guys were to say that left turn should be, or those deliveries should not be scheduled during, I don't know. That's something I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I don't know how we kick it. I don't know how we solve that into the next 30 days because it's an existing use that complies.
no. So, yeah, I mean, we can put a crap ton of conditions. Sorry, Mr. Chair. We can put a
Yep,
ton of
Fred.
conditions, but we can't enforce them, right? Our zoning enforcement officer cannot enforce them. Okay. And honestly, like what you guys have in place today was approved by a previous regime that's no longer here. And there's a reason why they're no longer here. So we want to keep you guys in town. We want to make this thing work, but we need to work together. So you guys need to go back to the drawing board and figure something out. And us as a town, we have to go back and figure something out as well. Because I do think we'll come to a compromise, but what you're sharing with us right now, it's not working.
Sorry, Fran or Susie. Sorry, I don't know who was first.
She went first last time, so I'll
I'll-
go first.
Okay, Fran, you can go.
Okay, and I apologize, Mr. Chair. I do think that the statement that was just made by one of the other members was inappropriate. Whatever the decisions were made in 2011 were made by the circumstances of the time, not for any reason other than that. So I would respectfully request that Brad rescind that comment. That being
Okay.
said, the problem for Mr. Sullivan is that not more detrimental, substantially detrimental is not just individual, but aggregate. And the fact that yours is not a lot of change, according to the numbers, it's added to already a substantial amount. And that, I think, is the problem that we are struggling with, because you're not responsible for the bad apples in the other companies or the people that are not following the rules. But we have to look at it from the standpoint that in total, is this now just the straw that broke the camel's back? And I think that that's what we're all struggling with. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
Mr.
Susie.
Chairman, I just want to add one thing if I could.
Sure.
I just want to be sure that everyone understands that the criteria for the special permit is it will not be substantially more detrimental than the existing use. So that kind of refers to, the existing use is grandfathered in, and what we're proposing is to extend that use. So is that extension of the 20 docks, is that extension substantially more detrimental than the existing use? I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yep, all on the same page. Thank you, Peter. Susie.
I mean, 642 trucks a day, possibly, even though FedEx is specific might be lower. To me, could be viewed in that way, but I just want to say that the 30 trucks that could possibly going the other way, to me, is might not be enough to say no to a left turn, say no to the left-hand turn exclusion. Because FedEx is, they're a super large company. You see them in every country, and I feel like they can figure it out. When we're a town and we're just trying to save a turn onto Main Street, where it really can't handle if you are waiting to turn onto Main Street and you can't back up for a truck that wants to turn, or the high school. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. So this is still a public meeting, and I do see some hands raised in the audience. Before I get to those, are there any other comments from the board or questions? Okay. Anything else to add from staff, Bob or Fred? Okay. So, all right. So this is still a public meeting. We'll go with John Wickstead. And just a reminder, if you could just state your full name and address, and we'll try to keep things to about 3 minutes or so. John, can you hear me?
Sure. Can you hear me? This is John Wickstead from 2 Stirrupbrook Lane.
Yep. Hi, John.
Hi. A couple of points that were raised here. According to table 4, it looks like you've got a potential increase from 360 odd vehicles to 500 and some. Although the applicant continues to tell us that it's only 10,000 square feet, that's a 42% increase. That is substantial. And I understand that the applicant tells us that the current use may not increase that much, but we're not zoning for the current use, we're zoning for the long-term use, and the potential increase of 42% is substantial. And, I think that certainly bears consideration. When we are looking at 600 and some vehicles per day, that's up to potentially 3,900 vehicles per month. That's a pretty substantial amount. And we're talking potentially 30 vehicles that might go to Lyman Street. That is well less than 1% of vehicles. I just don't see that it's a problem for them to fix the driveway for the 99% of vehicles and ask the less than 1% vehicles to go around the block. I mean, if you fix the driveway and you have the opportunity as a zoning board to do that now, you can make all of the trucks take the route that they're supposed to take and alleviate the town of all of its enforcement by re-engineering the driveway so that vehicles can only turn towards the east. Those 30 vehicles that turn towards the east can simply drive down Lyman Street, take a left-hand turn, go over Cedar Hill Road and go back. We're asking them to go 1 mile out of their way so that the rest of the vehicles in the Amazon facility and in the FedEx facility will go the correct direction. Furthermore, the secondary issue here, and I'll be quick with this one, is that the Amazon stipulation also says that trucks will not enter from the west. And if you reconfigure the driveway so that trucks can't enter from the west and they have to enter and exit from the east, then you alleviate the problems of trucks coming down through the center of town and turning on to Bartlett Street from Route 20, because they will quickly learn they can't do that. Instead, they will go the way they're supposed to go, which is from the east. The zoning board has an opportunity to change the configuration of that driveway such that all of the vehicles coming out of it must turn towards the east. That's certainly the right thing to do in this situation. And if the applicant doesn't like it, well, they don't have to expand their operation. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, John. Rudiger Volk. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear
Yep.
me?
Yes.
Thank
If
you.
you could just state your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Rüdiger Volk. I live in 137 East Main Street. I'm invested so far that I have my son takes a driving school at Crystal Driving School and pass every week this road, as well as I at least once a week pass Bartlett to Cedar Hill Road. A couple of things. I think it's easy to police to my consideration, but the police chief can correct me. With just a camera, which on Bartlett Street in front of the so near the high school, which makes just photos, not even speed, but just photos from the truck, which might pass the high school. Secondly, what was not discussed is what it would be the tax increase of the facility if there is an extension, a 42% extension. That would be also helpful for the town to have the tax increase. A third one is also 1 Lyman Street was recently reconsidered as a industrial zoning facility or plot. So not to forget this, I think the trucks makes a pure road inside an industrial complex when they be allowed to make a left turn on Bartlett Street. And the fourth one is also, I think it gives positive incentives maybe for industrial use to establish a business in the town, which I think is a high taxpayer for the town, not to forget this. So thank you very much for taking my voice.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think, Peter, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer to the tax revenue was your estimate was $30,000 for based on the increase in both the maintenance facility and the base. Is that accurate? Somewhere around there, 30 grand?
Let me look that up and I'll raise my hand when I have the number for you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Fran, sorry.
I just wanted to clarify because I think the first speaker did bring up the point about the driveway. I think the understanding is that because FedEx does not own the driveway, they cannot mandate that, and therefore we can't put it as a condition because they don't even own that location, if that is correct.
So my understanding is FedEx does not own where the drive cutout is. But I believe that Amazon was open to the redesign that was presented, or basically the framework of what Lori had said with a raised structure to prevent left-hand turns. So my understanding is that Amazon was open to it, nothing in writing, but that FedEx said that they want to access the left-hand turn to be able to loop around into the FedEx freight. So that's why we are where we are.
Oh, thank you. Fair enough.
Peter, didn't you have, I apologize, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to follow up on your point. Didn't you have additional conversations with Lori about that specific?
Yeah, we met with Lori.
Just want to make sure that we're all,
I believe Fred was on the call, and potentially a gentleman from the Public Works Department. And yeah, in general, it's true. FedEx Freight does not own the actual property where the driveway is located. When we met with the town and with Amazon, it was kind of a preliminary meeting. I think based off of their approvals that they have in place, they were open to having the discussion about the redesign of that intersection. But shortly after that meeting, we met with FedEx Freight and learned about their deliveries and operations that happen on Lyman Street. So they really at that time were not willing to give up the left turn through the physical restrictions. And Mr. Chairman, it was, you're correct, $30,000 of annual tax revenue will be generated by the proposed expansion.
And that's for both the maintenance shop and the base, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, great. Fran, does that answer? Yep, kind of what the question about the cutout? Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Carrie M.
Hi.
Hello, Carrie.
Yep. Hello, Carrie Martinick, 16 Hemlock Drive. A couple points from me. I'm speaking as a resident, but I'm a member of the planning board, and we spent the last couple of years really, really fighting for this section of town. We've done a lot of work to make every other warehouse on this street prohibit that turn. We made it non-negotiable and we stuck to it. And I think we need to continue to do that. FedEx just reported a week ago from today, that they made 90.2 billion in revenue for fiscal year 2023. I don't think 30 deliveries on Lyman Street puts a dent in that. And certainly if one truck, to the point that Jack made earlier, if one truck has to go around per day to make that 30, it's still far better than the 7 or 8 trucks that we see go through downtown almost every day. So if we can, this is the last holdout on that street. If we can make it so that we, every single warehouse has the same condition, the same prohibiting that turn, it makes it easier for enforcement. Once you start to let that little slide in, it becomes, well, were they going to Lyman Street or were they going, you can't, how do you prove where they were going? You just got to keep it black and white. We've fought hard to do it, and I hope you guys continue to do the same. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay. Thanks, Terry. All right, I have Gary Phillips. Gary, if you could just unmute, state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, Gary Phillips. I'm 22 Gristmill Lane, and I've just installed a pollination garden, native plant pollination garden at Watson Park on Lyman. And included in the planting is wild lupin, which is a state listed rare plant. You don't have wild lupin in Maine anymore because big leaf lupin was installed there, and that's native to Western United States. And when a bee visits big leaf lupin and then visits wild lupin, the seeds it generates are crossed and they're no longer wild lupin. And I noticed that at FedEx property, there are thousands of the big leaf lupin on that hill. And what usually happens is the landscaper tries to install the correct one. Happened to me this last year. They deliver the wrong one. The nurseries, they cross and they deliver the wrong one. So, and once that happens, it self-seeds, and eventually you've got thousands of them. So I would like to add a provision, if this gets approved, to remove the big leaf lupin, just for the sake of what happened in Maine. There's no more wild lupin because it was all crossed. So and there's also a group lobbying to have the big leaf lupin in Massachusetts be added to the invasive list.
Okay.
Actually, Gary, you mind? So, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So the property FedEx Freight it's close enough to Watson Park that a bee can visit the big leaf lupin and also visit the native one that's at the park. And it's not just that, but those seeds can escape and go roadside, and then we're at risk of losing the wild lupin. It's already a state listed plant on the way to being extinct. So I'm hoping that FedEx Freight or the property owner can remediate and remove all the big leaf lupin from that hill.
Okay. So one sec, Brad. So I think the property we're talking about is 300 Bartlett, which is near the Amazon, and not the FedEx Freight that's across from Watson Park. So
yeah, the property at Bartlett Street, the FedEx Freight on Bartlett had beautiful lupin plants that were mowed down when it was right after it flowered, but that's the invasive one.
Okay, all right. Thank you,
Got
Gary. Appreciate it.
Got it. Thank you, Gary.
We can try to take that back and figure that one out. All right. I'm going to take one more public comment because I see one more hand raised. S. Youssef. Hello, S. Youssef.
Hi, sorry, Stephanie Youssef,
Yep.
5 Johnson Ave. I apologize. I was trying to figure out how to unmute.
That's okay.
So I'm going to ask in advance to please excuse my ignorance if I'm incorrect, but so I clearly live in that area, and I absolutely agree that the traffic safety is an issue, not only with the trucks in general, but the new drivers as well. And actually, quite frankly, people who have been driving on the road for 40 years. I think there's a lot of distracted drivers out there, but is it the applicant's responsibility to fix that traffic solution, or is it us as a town to figure out that? I don't understand who is actually responsible, like who can change traffic flow? Like if we're saying that we shouldn't have trucks going a certain way, is it up to all of the industrial zone areas to figure out how they're not supposed to go that way? Or is it up to, I don't know, and I'm asking because I don't know who's responsible, who can make that decision or law to do that. But I mean, it seems to me that if, and again, excuse my ignorance, but if all that listed criteria is met by the applicant and that's what's set forth, can the board say, no, you can't do that, especially when they're trying to accommodate, even when they may not have to? I'm just throwing that out there because I'm not really, sure how that works. Like, it sounds like this topic does keep coming up. And like I said, I live in that exact area. I have, 2 kids that went to that school, one who's currently in it. And I absolutely agree it's an issue, but I think we keep, badgering people who are in an industrial zone, and it was made an industrial zone. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter at this point who made it an industrial zone. And I don't see it not becoming an industrial zone anytime soon. So I think maybe we need to come at it from a different angle and figure out, if we don't want people going down a certain road, how do we make it so they're not allowed to go down a certain road?
Yeah, so I guess, so the project that's in front of us is obviously at 300 Bartlett. The FedEx is the current occupant there, and they're looking to expand and put in a maintenance facility and also expand 22 bays. In terms of like the truck traffic that exists there, I can point you to the 2021 CMRPC road audit that was done by the town. There's been plenty of man hours spent by Fred, Bob, select board, planning board, and a number of different people and town staff that have looked at this place. I think the CMRPC document is 50 pages long of pictures taken. They've looked at the number of trucks traveling on Bartlett Street. So there's been a lot of focus in this part of town. I would say that it's not simply as putting in a truck restriction because you need other towns' permissions to do so. So it's not as simple as stopping all trucks from driving on a certain road, because it's a little bit more complicated than that. Fred, correct me if I'm wrong here. But that's sort of what we're trying to do. And last meeting that we had, where we opened up this case, there was a concern that we had then. The town planner, Lori Connors, proposed sort of building a small structure that would prevent left-hand turns. The applicant took that back, and now they're coming back and providing feedback on us providing that condition there. So that's sort of where we are with the case. Fred, I don't know if I missed anything in terms of the truck exclusion or being sort of that high level, or Bob, I don't know if you guys have anything to add there, but that's my understanding, is that we can't just go in and say, because of this one thing, we need to shut down all traffic on a particular road.
The only thing I can add, Paul, is that the truck exclusion option for Bartlett Street is not an option, because any alternate route would require trucks to travel through another community, and according to the state regulation on truck exclusions, those communities would have to grant permission for that. And in our previous reaches to those communities, the answer has been no.
Right. And I think the other conclusion that I've also read is that, you know, there have been sort of these town studies done and road audits. And even though this portion of Bartlett Street where the high school is would in theory be eligible for a high capacity vehicle truck exclusion because of what Fred had mentioned about other towns and rerouting, that's not available to us as a town. But that's more of a town thing than actually this board's focus on this particular project. Fred, sorry, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you had just said. One of the things, our role is to look at this as a special permit. It was at one point an allowed use, and the zoning changed. And to Ms. Martinick's point, our responsibility is to impose, if approved, impose reasonable legal or legally upheld conditions to make it so that it is as safe as possible. And that is the role of the zoning board and or the planning board in these situations. It's a special permit, which means we, if approved, we would put conditions on it that have to be self-enforced, because there is not going to be a police officer standing at the edge of the driveway. But it would have to be that process that addresses the concerns.
Thank you very much for the information.
Thank you. Appreciate you calling in. All right. So I think that'll do it for the public part of the meeting. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions or comments. I think just, you know, well, first I would say I hope that we continue this meeting to our July meeting. I think that there's a list of things that we can sort of look into, try to brainstorm on how best to sort of manage sort of the proposed conditions that FedEx is proposing. And us as a board can either take those and try to come up with a good way to enforce them with the help of Bob, or, you know, we can impose our own conditions as we see fit as the board. I still would like to see how, you know, what the detailed plan is to educate the drivers, and any sort of ideas that the applicant has to sort of mitigate some of the traffic safety concerns that we have on that stretch of road. I don't know if Bob or Fred have anything else to add, or anyone else from the board at this time, but.
May I ask you a question, Mr. Chair?
Sure. Yes, Jeff.
And this is genuinely just trying to take the temperature of the board in terms of the left turn issue. If that were off of the table on this and we were to go back and say, look, it's either yay or nay here. So again, we're talking, to everyone's point here, we are talking about 30 trips. And I'm not diminishing those 30 trips, but I'm also saying to FedEx, this is only 30 trips that you can schedule, that you're going to need to schedule differently. I'm just throwing this out there. Is that the fundamental issue as it relates to traffic to this group? If that was off the table.
Yeah. Sorry, Fran, was I?
Oh, I was gonna say, I mean, we could do a straw poll if you wanted, Paul.
Yeah.
I'm just more saying if the, not to say that we wouldn't continue, but if we were to put a condition in now to say there is no left turn out of that road for trucks, I think we can take that back and make that work. I'm not saying that because I want to make sure we're hearing everybody about this, not just trying to jam through something that we might want. So if that is something that everybody is, that's the major sticking point in my mind, and that can be added to the order of conditions that Fred had put out last week, I would be comfortable trying to work that. Peter, does that make sense to you?
Yep, sure does.
Oh, I'm sorry, what is that? Limiting the number of trucks to 30?
Oh, no left turn from our site. I'm not saying limiting it to 30. I'm saying those 30 are not taking a left.
So Jeff, in that scenario, are you saying that we would install the physical improvements that the board had asked for at the last meeting?
Yeah, and apologies. My understanding is that there was also a conversation, Peter, I might have been merging stuff here, but that Lori was involved and there was some sort of a that they were on board with the Fred and Lori were involved and it was a safety thing. So I'm fine trying to work that on our side. in terms of the left turn piece. I just want to make sure that because this is an issue that we want to be responsive to, not just keep trying to talk to you guys about how we might want it. This is a give and a take here. We can figure that out. I can't build on the Link property without figuring that out as a group, but if under the order of conditions, we were to put some stipulation that says there's no left turn onto Bartlett Street to comport with exactly what the planning board member had mentioned, that's us being a good member of the community too, right? Because this is, if we're the only one on this strip that's not there, I think we can try to make that work. If that's a threshold issue for the group, I just want to, if that takes this off your plate and puts it under the order of conditions, I think that's something we can work with.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. So what I would say is, the 15 to 30 trips does not seem like a lot. And, on paper, it does seem, I guess I would have to think about it more. I mean, ideally for me, I would just restrict no left-hand turns out of the facility.
Well, that's what I'm saying, sir. That's for trucks. We can't do that with passenger cars, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, for trucks, that's what I was implying. Not that there's a 30 limit or anything. Pure no left turns from FedEx. Would that get everybody comfortable on that piece?
I think ideally that gets us in a better place.
Yes.
That's my opinion. Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in my opinion, that shows a strong good faith effort for FedEx to get their traffic. If all their traffic has to turn right, and as Mr. Wickstead pointed out, if they wanted to make that Lyman connection, they could thread their way through the albeit the Marlboro Industrial Park to come back on Lyman Street. But that also means that any truck heading out is already on its way that way to 495, and to make its distant connections, they're very unlikely to go through town or to come back on Bartlett just to go in front of the high school. At that point, they're already a mile down the road in order to turn around. I think, as I say, it gives me a great comfort that we don't have to enforce the problems if they're ready to make all the traffic turn right, and the exceptions be that they'll have to thread back. I think it's as I say, I take it as a good faith effort on FedEx's part.
And I think, Bob, you would probably agree that that's easier to enforce. I don't want to speak for you, but
yeah, it would definitely lighten the load. I mean, the question still remains is, how would we enforce something, if someone does take a left-hand turn, I would still have to be sitting at the driveway watching these vehicles leave.
Gotcha.
And so in theory, yeah, it would help. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Susie, I think you had your hand raised.
It would definitely help me get to where I need to be. I would still like Fran had said, I would love to see the signage change that they were proposing. That was a great point. And also what we were saying about the training, because that really piqued my interest as well. I really wanted to see what they were going to be giving them. But yes, the left turn exclusion would be great.
Okay. Brad?
Yeah, guys, I really appreciate you acquiescing and helping us out. We have that 1 mile stretch that is a hot topic in this town. So I really, really appreciate you guys trying to help us out, because it's a hot topic. Okay. And any way that we can get trucks off of that 1 mile stretch from Route 20, the Route 20 to Bartlett down to that Lyman Street. Any way you guys can help us out. We want to make this work. Like I said, we want to make this work. We want to keep you guys in town. But you understand this is a hot topic. Okay. So anything you guys can do to help us out as a town, as a board, is just, we're not making a decision tonight, but you guys go back to the drawing board a little bit more. But I love what you guys are doing. So we're getting there. We're getting there.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Brad. Jeff, does that sort of?
No, that helps. I just wanted to make sure I understood in general, because, we thought we were trying to help with the Lyman Street stuff, and it might have actually just overcomplicated it. So what we can do in the short term is we'll drill in. Again, I can't control what we do at Link. What I can make sure is commit with you guys to putting on signage across from that exit that says no trucks, that again, that we would have to work with your town departments on that, because we don't own across Bartlett Street. But if we're just going to a no left turn on that, and I think it's going to be cleaner. I can't guarantee on our side, but that's where we want to come. And from our side, what we will do is we will provide you guys with information earlier before we get onto this call about that, so that you're more prepared, and we will make it very clear to FedEx. We asked them the day after this meeting for the training information, and asked them all the way up until yesterday. So they got to be the same. They're going to do the same effort. So we'll jump on that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. I'll stop.
That's great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. And yeah, I would just say finally, like, we appreciate you guys working with the town, working with us, coming to these meetings and everything. So, and having the conversation and being able to talk it out. So I think if no one has any other comments or questions.
Fred did.
Fred.
Yep. Just a quick clarification. Are we talking about signage for the no left turn? Or are we talking physical restriction? And if so, I'd like to see some kind of plans that we could review before the next meeting to make sure they're adequate to be included in the design set. Or is it, if it's just signage and enforcement in that regard, that's fine. I just need to know where we're headed.
Yeah, no, I think, Fred, what we would do is put together a plan for
Okay.
maybe not you, because I don't know if I'll have it for you by Friday, but unless you're doing this pro bono.
I'm actually, I'm going to be around on a part-time basis.
Okay.
Though I will be here till
Hard to get.
there's somebody else to take over and carry the gauntlet. So,
yep.
But I'll be around.
Fred can't quit us. Not yet.
Yeah, I think it just makes sense to get everybody comfortable with a physical improvement. I think, and signage.
I think the physical restriction is the only thing that's going to make Bob's life easier.
Okay.
And that's one of the goals.
All right.
Okay. So then I guess then if that is the goal, if it's possible, then either some sort of a plan, obviously the written agreement, whatever it is required from Amazon, saying that you'll be able to make those improvements, and then obviously give Fred some time to sort of, from an engineer's perspective, and whether he needs to loop in Scott or anyone else for a second opinion, just to make sure that trucks coming in and out are able to navigate that structure. So, all right.
Thank you.
If no one has anything else, then I will entertain a motion to continue to our July 25th meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I move that we continue the petition for MBI Northborough LLC for the special permit to extend the non-conforming use and special permit with site plan approval to expand the existing trucking terminal by 12,218 square feet and 20 loading docks to be located at 300 Bartlett Street to our July 25th, 2023 meeting at 6 p.m.
Second.
Fran made a motion to continue. Mark seconded. Roll call vote. Fran?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Susie?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay. Thank you guys. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, so next up is to consider the petition of David Cooley for a special permit to reconstruct a non-conforming structure destroyed by fire, special permit for use in a groundwater protection overlay district, and site plan approval for a proposed 5-unit, 4,600 square foot multifamily structure and associated site work on the property located at 129 Maple Street, map 52, parcel 17, 18, and 29 in the residential C zoning district and groundwater protection overlay district area 2. All right. Hello, Mr. Cooley, can you hear me? On here twice. Hello, Mr. Cooley? Can you hear me?
Yep, I gotcha. Can you hear me?
Hey, yep. Is there anyone else you need on this call?
Looks like Justin's labeled as me. And
I
I
don't know
need
how that works, but yes.
Jay Gallant to come in.
Okay. So it's just Jay Gallant?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I guess you want to just give us a rundown on the project and what you're looking for?
Yep, why don't you go ahead, Justin?
Yep, can you all see this? So, just for the record, Justin LeClaire, McCarty Engineering, here on behalf of Mr. David Cooley for the proposed 5-unit multifamily development to be located at 129 Maple Street. Also online is Jay Gallant, Gallant Architecture. So, just to orient everyone, this is the existing parcel here. So you have Johnson Ave, Maple Street, and Omaha Street here. The existing 5-unit multifamily dwelling was severely damaged in a fire back in September of 2021. As part of the proposed project, the applicant is seeking to demolish the existing 5-unit dwelling and construct a new 5-unit dwelling that is shown here, with the associated parking fields that be conforming to town standards. One located here on the southern side of the building and one located here on the northern side of the building. Additionally, we're proposing dry wells to collect the roof runoff that would be guttered and piped underground. And we're proposing P-stone diaphragms along the edges of the driveways here and here that would collect the runoff from the driveway and infiltrate and treat that. Additionally, landscaping is proposed along Maple Street to provide some screening. So we have a spruce over here with some shrubs, and then a mix of dogwood and cypress hioki here that would screen the proposed building back from Maple Street. We have received a comment letter back from Lori that was dated June 1st regarding some comments and concerns she had about it. We're currently in the process of addressing those and revising the plan accordingly. We also did have our design review meeting back on June 14th, received comments from them, and we are scheduled to be back in front of them as part of their July 13th meeting. At this time, I'd like to hand it off to Jay Gallant to discuss the architecturals. And Jay, I can pull those up for you if you want.
So the new 5-unit building we're proposing is in keeping with the single family residential units and buildings in the neighborhood. The existing building was built in the mid 1800s. It's large, it's sprawling, been added on to many times. And this one's a nice clean design. If you could scroll up to the floor plans.
Yep.
We're proposing 5 identical units, mostly identical. Yeah, I mean, the plans anyway are identical of each one. And we're also proposing to kind of juxtapose them slightly and increasing, moving a couple of the units closer by 2 feet to just the flat building, give it a little bit of architectural interest. But the idea is, 1 bedroom, because our septic system is a 5-bedroom system. So the new building will be 5 units, but also 5 bedrooms. So each unit has a bedroom on the first floor, as you can see, adjacent to the kitchen, with a living room in the front and a bathroom and a staircase in the corner, kind of simple design. We're trying to keep the square footage appropriate, but also minimal, because we want to make good use of the property, but not make the building too large. And then on the second floor, because we're building, if you scroll down quickly to the rendering.
Little rendering here,
So
Jay.
as you can see, just again, for architectural interest, we have dormers proposed on the front and also the back of the building. And then the roof, of course, creates a second story for us. And so the second story, we're proposing to finish that just as, family room space, 1 large open space with a bathroom also. So creates a building. Again, if you could scroll, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but if you could scroll up to the first page again, there's a square footage summary in the upper right-hand corner.
Yeah, let me zoom in on
Each unit will be approximately 1,470 square feet total, but the first floor will be about 4,700 square feet, which is slightly larger, but not significantly larger than the existing building, which is about 3,900 square feet according to assessor's records. And that's where we're at with the design.
So if the board has any questions, comments, concerns, we'd be happy to address anything.
Sure. I guess, so with regards to this design, can you confirm the total finished and the total gross square footage for the entire structure?
Jay, I believe.
Right back to that
table.
summary, right?
Yeah.
So that's the summary. So the first floor of each unit, just by dimensions, I think it's 24 by 38 feet, something like that, gets us to 24 by 38 gets us to 912 square feet for the footprint. The finished attic, as I was mentioning, is a consequence of the roof design. It gets us an additional 560 square feet of living area. So the total living area of each unit, 1,472 square feet, multiplied by 5 units, 7,420 square feet total if you count everything. The 4,720 is the first floor footprint, and then there's additional unfinished space that's not usable, which I don't know if the town counts that, but that's shown there for 1,760. And then we're proposing basements because we have to dig down for frost protection anyway, so why not have a basement in each space? It makes sense for storage for the residents. An additional 4,720 square feet, which is the footprint I just described. We could total all that up.
So is the total gross 13,900 square feet?
Yes.
Which is 74.
Yeah, all those numbers together, yes.
Okay. So total finish is 7,420. Total gross is 13,900 square feet. Okay. So I think my understanding is you guys still need to come up with a final design with design review, and your next meeting is mid-July. So I just, so the purpose that you're in front of us today, right, is multifamily housing is a non-allowed use within the residential C zone at all, meaning that if someone has a piece of property, they can't build a multifamily house. Now, this particular piece of property had a 5-unit multifamily house that existed prior to the changing of the zoning bylaws, and existed up until September of 2021 when there was a fire, right? And our zoning bylaws, I believe section 7-08060, talking about a reconstruction after catastrophe or demolitions, allows a non-conforming structure to be constructed after catastrophe or demolition in accordance with the following provisions. So specifically, lets you build a property that is non-conforming with a use that is non-conforming, so long as you are on the same footprint for the same volume. Meaning that if you guys were to take the original footprint and volume and to rebuild it with a 5-unit multifamily, right, you would not be in front of us today, right? So specifically what's in front of the board today is this expansion of this sort of framework of a proposal that we're looking at on screen, right? So the use of a 5-unit multifamily is really not within our scope, right? Because there was a fire, you can build a new structure, same footprint, same volume, and not have to come in front of our board, but it's because you're changing things around, and so that's why you're in front of us today. Is that, Bob, basically the understanding there?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Very good, Mr. Chair.
Awesome. Thank you. Did my best Bob impersonation. All right. So I do want to talk about, and I kind of want to start. I know that there's been some email traffic with regards to the lots. All right. So I kind of want to just understand. Well, I'll start with this. I'll give you what I see as happening, and then I'll allow the applicant to respond. So prior to the fire in 2021, there existed essentially 3 lots in this sort of section of the neighborhood. There's Maple Street to the south, there's Johnson Street, and then there's Omaha Street, right? And so the 3 different lots there, yep, with those lot lines that are located on that screen, right, existed in September of 2021 when the fire was purchased, when the fire happened. When the property was sold in the end of 2022, a deed was filed that essentially combined the 3 lots, right, into one. And so the deed is actually what's in our packet that we have. It combines the 3 different lots. Roughly speaking, the 3 lots are 21,000, 20,000, and 11,000 square feet. So this deed here combines it into one lot containing 52,702 square feet, or 1.2 acres, more or less. And so I guess my first question is, what is the actual lot plan that the applicant is trying to propose?
Okay, I think I can take care of that. So I am only concerned and only talking about during this meeting with the 129 Maple Street, which is the current one that is being submitted. Bob, myself, and my attorney and town council actually met last week, and we are currently working on what is going to be the situation that plays out with the other lots that I own. But as for this meeting and this current application, we are only concerned about 129 Maple Street, not the other 3 addresses.
Okay. And so, Fred, have we heard from town council with an opinion on that?
Town council sent a letter today, an email indicating that the use of the 5-family was allowed on this location. It did not address the other parts of the other 2 lots, as David just pointed out. And so,
correct. And at this time, I'm only concerned about 129 Maple. That's what's on the application. That's the lot that I'm specifically speaking about. And if we could just move on from that, because town council has to weigh on it, and that's not part of my application. Thank you.
Okay, great. I guess then, you know, the next question I have is with regards to the septic system. You know, this was an email that was sent to us, or a letter from Kristen Black. I don't know if the applicant has had a chance to look at it, but
Yeah,
I
I
actually
can stop you. I can stop you right there, Paul. I don't know if you saw the second email that came through, but the septic system did pass a Title V. Kristen had sent a follow-up. She apologized. Actually, after I saw her email, I called her and said, this was passed on a Title V 2 months ago. And she sent a follow-up email about 20 minutes later, apologizing and saying that the septic system did pass a Title V and it is all set for a 5-bedroom unit.
right, I think there were some comments about classifying, I guess, the attic as a bedroom. Is that accurate?
On my application that I went over with Bob and Lori prior to submitting this, it will be submitted with the Registry of Deeds as a 5-bedroom multifamily. And that's how we're recording it. So it would be listed and rented as 1-bedroom units. 2 bedrooms is not acceptable. It will not be in my lease. And these will be specifically 1-bedroom units recorded with the Registry of Deeds.
Okay.
And I can provide a copy of the lease terms if that's something that the ZBA is looking for as well.
Sure. Okay. Are there any questions from other members of the board?
Mr. Chair. So we're talking about
Brad.
1-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom dwelling. I'm confused as to why there's a full bathroom up in the attic. Will the roof be retractable where you can sit in the hot tub and look at the stars? Or can you tell me a little bit more about why there's a bathroom up there? In the attic?
I kind of like your style, Brad. I mean, maybe I can go back in front of my architect and potentially do something. I mean, I know this isn't Boston views where they have rooftop decks, but you know, if that's acceptable by the town, I think you know, we could get a pretty good look. But there's a second bathroom upstairs, simply just to accommodate guests and in and out. You know, if that's a concern of yours about having a bathroom on the second floor, then I'm definitely open to you know, hearing you out on it and taking that into consideration.
All right, so the roof is not retractable.
At this current time, I don't believe so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Fran, you have your hand up?
I think somebody else had, I think Mark might have been ahead of me.
Oh, all right. Sorry, Fran. Mark.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Chair, I had the same concern that Brad did. With a full bath on the second floor, a large area open on the second floor, it seems to me that it invites 2 or 3 bedrooms if you want to put up some sort of divider. And I guess my question to Bob is 1 bedroom in this situation enforceable? Yeah, I'd just like his opinion on the whole 1-bedroom unit and how he feels this would roll out in practice.
The determination of whether it's a 1-bedroom or if it's being used as a 2-bedroom is a discussion primarily set by the health agent in terms of what that space looks like and how similar it would look, like a second bedroom. You know, there may be some discussions. I'm not sure about this at all. So, but I'm just saying there may be some more discussions between the health agent and Mr. Cooley about, you know, maybe some architectural changes on the second floor to make it less inviting to be used as a second bedroom. But that's primarily a decision up front with the architectural design with the health agent and Mr. Cooley. You know, in terms of enforcement, you know, if we hear that people are using as a second bedroom, I can always call the property owner. In this case, it would be Mr. Cooley. As a landlord, he has the authority to go in with reasonable time to allow an inspection of the apartment, which he has been able to do with me on other occasions with enforcement within the town. So, you know, make a long story short, he's probably has some discussions to do with the architecture and the health agent. And if there's an enforcement issue, we do have the ability to go in and take a look and see what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Rob. Bob. Sorry, I don't know who that was.
Mr. Leclerc, McCarthy
Dave.
Engineering.
Yep.
If I could just expand on that a little bit, and I did have this conversation with Mr. Cooley as well. Under Title V, which is your regulations for septic systems, they do have a boilerplate type deed restriction that does restrict how much you can put into your septic system. So typically you use them on 2-bedroom systems where you're only allowing a max of 2 bedrooms in a single family home. But we have seen it used on situations like this where we're saying, okay, there are 5 1-bedroom units, and that would be the binding document to say you can't have more than that. And then, as Bob said, if there was a potential issue, it could be enforced through him and Mr. Cooley.
Okay. Fred, just a quick question. I'm not sure. When doing like a septic calculation, is it bedrooms and bathrooms that are used for that? Or is it just bedrooms?
It's just bedrooms.
Okay.
The sanitary code calls for 110 gallons per bedroom, irrespective of the number of bathrooms in the place. The definition of a bedroom is what Bob and Kristen were trying to determine. I think the concern is that with a bathroom, it could be converted to a bedroom, but the deed restriction is how the Board of Health usually prevents that from happening legally.
Okay. Fran, did you have your hand up? Or you did at one point?
I did. I think my questions are answered. I think that the second floor, the attic, it's only 500 square feet. Sounds like a nice rec room for a young couple. I mean, and having a bathroom on that floor makes sense to me. I appreciate the deed restriction. The fact that there'll be rental units does give control to the landlord as opposed to individually owned condominiums, which would then be 5 different individuals having to ensure that they were adhered to. So I think that that does make sense.
I also want to point out too that in prior applications, you know, I know Bob had talked about it, you know, there was questions about, you know, my leases and how many bedrooms were in it at a different project. And Bob and I did walk through them and verify that on a separate project that was correct. So I'd like to vouch a little bit for my word that if I say there's X amount of bedrooms, there's going to be X amount of bedrooms. It's been proven with Bob and I. Actually, it was for the ZBA as well on my last project.
Okay. Susie, you have your hand raised?
I just had a quick question. I apologize. I was taking notes earlier when you said about the basement's going to be unfinished, but I had missed what the I think it was the engineer had said why that he would put in a basement. Did it have something to do with the septic? I just missed that point.
No, it didn't have anything to do with the septic. Currently, there's an unfinished rock foundation with some, you know, concrete as well. So this would just be your standard, you know, foundation that Bob and Fred could attest to, that is brought up to code And this is currently what you would install on a new development.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I also want to point out too that, you know, it's kind of a tough subject with the town. You know, a gentleman had passed away, you know, in this, you know, facility. And, you know, this is a 5-unit building. Now the new town code is to have a full, you know, fire suppression system in there. In between each unit, there will be, you know, a firewall. So if in unit 1 there is a fire, I don't know exactly how many minutes, but I think it's like an hour and a half, you know, time frame for it to travel from unit 1 to unit 2. So for safety reasons, you know, obviously I could have rebuilt the unit that was there and not come in front of you, but I'm also looking, not only as a developer, I'm looking out for the town and the safety and, you know, hopefully to and not have an incident like happened before. So it's in my best interest to, you know, take down the building, you know, bring it up to speed with the current building, you know, bylaws and, you know, put a full fire system in here and also be able to contain a fire in the case that one does happen in one unit.
Okay, thanks. I guess, Bob, just a quick question. Does any new 5-unit multifamily require a sprinkler system?
Yes. And it also requires a 1-hour separation wall that is rated for the 1-hour protection, and it goes from the bottom of the basement floor to all the way up, continuous, all the way up to the underside of the plywood holding the shingles.
Okay, and that's regardless of size, right?
That's right, regardless of size.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other board members that have any other questions or comments at this time? I think just from my perspective, seems like there's some open ends with design review, the lot, and then the health agent. So we will most likely continue this meeting to another one. But I don't see anyone else with their hands. So I won't, this is a public meeting for those who are in the audience. I see John Wickstead with their hand raised. Hello, John.
Hi, how are you?
Good. If you could just state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, John Wickstead, 2 Sturbrook Lane. You know, the picture that's currently on the screen, I think, says it all. You know, this building is double the footprint of the existing building. You know, if they want to build a 5-unit lot on there, they can. They can do this by right without having to come before the board. And they certainly don't need an appeal for it. It's not like they're asking an appeal for a small, you know, change to the plan. What they're asking for is an appeal to double the square footprint of this thing. It's not the same size, it's not the same footprint, and it's certainly not within the character of this neighborhood. You know, this is a neighborhood of single-family ranches and capes. You know, if you're unfamiliar with it, I would encourage the board members to take a drive around that little neighborhood there, you know, behind Peasley School. They're putting up 5 townhouses. There used to be a farmhouse there, and now we're going to double the square footage of it, and we're going to put up 5 townhouses in a neighborhood of little small capes and ranches. It's not within the character of the neighborhood. It's a dramatic departure from what was currently there. The town has no obligation to support this. You know, in fact, we're now putting a second parking lot on this residential area. So now we've got a residential area with 2 separate parking lots. And this doesn't even begin to address the issues that they have with that second floor. And, you know, anybody who thinks those second floors aren't going to be used as a bedroom is, you know, is deluding themselves. I mean, there's a lot of issues with this thing. You know, first and foremost, this is not the same footprint. It's not the same size. And the owners are completely within their rights to build a 5-unit bedroom within the existing footprint of the 5-unit bedroom. I don't see why the ZBA even needs to get involved. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I have a S. Youssef.
Hi, Stephanie Youssef, 5 Johnson Ave. I'm a neighbor. I'm one of the houses that's directly across from the property on the Johnson side. So first off, I'm definitely all for the development of the property. Very tragic situation there. And so I'm all for the actual development. So welcome, neighbor. That being said, I do have some concerns, some similar as John Wickstead did with the footprint, the size of the footprint, and the second bathroom situation. That being said, I think that's obviously going to be decided, by the board. But I know that also the other properties, you don't want to, they're not on this particular site, but if you have the 5 units and then you develop on the other 2 units, that's adding a lot more people and cars and traffic. And so to that note, my other concern would be, it's a concern and a question. One, are you going to still have the open driveway on Johnson Ave and also on Maple as it is now? And if so, my concerns are that before there was just the one, the five units, and I think there's going to be more than 1 car per unit probably. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I've come out of my driveway and almost got clipped with someone coming out onto Johnson from the 129 exit onto Johnson Ave. And it's barely a 2-car street is the issue there. So I do see potential safety issues depending upon the number of people and cars that would be expected on there. And again, the foot size of the footprint and the other properties and whether how those are going to be developed. And the only other question is a selfish question as to what's going to happen with the bushes along the property line on Johnson, because they are so big and awful that they set the sensors of my truck off every time and cause my automatic brakes to come on. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think, I guess with regards to parking, Bob, can you confirm with 5 bedrooms, 5 units with 1 bedroom, what is like the minimum required parking? Is it like 7 or 8?
Yeah, we've got it written down. They can pull it up. It's on our plan.
Yeah. So if you look here under the parking summary, it's for the residential 1 bedroom, it's 1.5 spaces per unit. So at 5 units times that 1.5 gets you to 7.5 spaces. And then it's plus 10% of the total spaces. So
gotcha.
Your 10% gets you to 0.75. So the total required here would be 9, and we are providing those 9 spaces. And just to circle back to the 2 parking fields, the reason that you're seeing it the way it is the existing parking field that was located here on the south side of the building wasn't conforming to the town of Norfolk standards for drive aisle size as well as the actual parking stall size. So to be able to have the 9 spaces required for the rebuilding of the 5 units, to have your 9x18 parking spaces and a 20-foot drive aisle that you see on the plan, we did have to break it up into 2, but we are maintaining the 2 curb cuts that are on the Maple Street property right now. One being here where the existing parking field is, the second one here where there is already a bituminous concrete driveway that goes to a gravel driveway up to the existing shed back here. So that's just how we got to the number of spaces and the methodology that we got to the 2 parking fields.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie, you had your hand raised. I just want to make does that answer all your questions? And I would say with regards to bushes, or if there's questions with pertaining to more of the design, the applicant still has to go in front of design review. I believe that meeting is somewhere in mid-July. That's something that they would be more focused on in terms of shrubs and that sort of thing. So You can either lob your questions into them, or I don't know if it's a public meeting, but
Sorry, the only other question that I had was whether or not the driveway on Johnson, the exit on Johnson will still be existing, or will both of the exits be on Maple? I just can't tell that from the plans. Thank you. That was my only other question.
I can address that for 129 Maple Street. Both driveways will be on Maple Street, and I can also answer her other question that she would have to email Scott from the DPW, because those trees are probably 3 feet or 4 feet onto the road. I don't know on that property with the trees. I know exactly what you're talking about. The trees are completely going into the road, but that's more of a town matter, not a matter for me, just so you know. I know you, I don't know if you guys have driven by or not, but I can answer that question for her.
Great. Thank you. All right, so there's someone named Family. If you could just please state your full name and your address and unmute. Someone with their hand raised named Family.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. We live right next to the property and that we're discussing now.
And you could just state, sorry, if you could just state your full name and your address for minutes.
Tracy Lathrop, 121 Maple Street.
Sorry, what was that name again?
Tracy Lathrop.
Okay, thank you.
I actually sent in an email, but I'm not sure if you got it or not.
I think we did, yes. Thank you.
We did.
So I just wanted to address some of my concerns. So my first concern is I wanted to know what kind of testing has been done so far to see what hazardous compounds like asbestos and mold and lead might be present, and what kind of protections they're going to be doing before taking down the structure to prevent exposure to the community.
Yep, I can answer that question for you. Before demoing a property, there's a checklist that has to be signed off. Bob and I have already went over this. I actually have everything already signed off on my demo permit, and the asbestos and lead paint and stuff has already been disposed of by a certified contractor. That was actually done prior to me purchasing the building. Bob has seen that paperwork, and it was missing one signature on one page. I had got it signed, sent it back with Bob, and Bob okayed that.
Okay, and then what about mold?
As for mold, that's not part of the demolition permit. I don't really know how to answer that, I guess. I haven't been in the building.
The roof is opened and has been getting rained on all this time.
Okay.
Any kind of demolition or movement of the structure is going to bring those mold spores right into the air.
Okay, well, I can do an assessment on that, and hopefully if we finish this meeting with one more meeting, that the building will be down within a month.
Okay. My next question is, I guess just the size of the structure. I know you're not talking about the other properties right now, but this is structure that you're proposing is significantly larger than the other structure. And let's say possible 10 people, maybe even more in this structure that you're building now. If you get another 10 between the other two properties, that's a significant amount of traffic in and out of here. And I also just don't think it kind of fits into the neighborhood, given the other homes that are in the area and the needs for the town. There's a lot of families looking to get into Northborough in single family, maybe 2-family houses.
Well, maybe I'll, you know what I'll do? Maybe I'll propose to the town that I own 3 lots there, and let the town build me 3 single-family houses.
Okay. All right, Tracy, is that all?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you calling in.
Thank you.
Carrie M.
Hi, Carrie Marnick, 16 Hemlock Drive. I know Lori's not there tonight, so I just wanted to call in actually with the planning board memo. We had a chance to look at this as part of our technical review, so I just wanted to bring up a couple of those things that we had talked about One being, I think the board already addressed, just overall unanimous concern, the attic space will be used as a second bedroom and the impact on septic system capacity. The board was also unanimously concerned that the applicant's misinterpreting the intent of the bylaws with respect to reconstruction after a catastrophe or demolition.
No, I
as
don't think that's correct. Bob
proposing-
is shaking his head, so I can stop you there. I see Bob shaking his head, so I think we can iron that out right
That's
now.
all right. I'll be stopped by the chair only. Thank you. As he's proposing to replace the multifamily building containing 5 units with 5 attached single-family dwellings or townhouses, which is a significant difference from what's there now. Additionally, there seems to not be an A&R on file, and that would be something that would be approved by the planning board. And I think that's problematic to the application as well. So I just wanted to bring a couple of those concerns up that came out of the planning board technical review. I think someone else brought up just the landscape, should this be approved, just the landscape buffers for butters on Omaha Avenue and Johnson Avenue as well.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
And then, so I see one more hand up. Kevin Doherty. So he will be the last person from the public to speak on this, or actually one more person, John and Samantha Cantlin. Kevin. Hello, Kevin, if you can just please unmute, state your full name and your address.
Yes, it's Kevin Doherty, 5 Maple Lane, North Row, Mass.
How's it going?
Good, how you doing? I was just curious, I think a few people have brought it up, and I've seen with some other projects that are under proposal, if there's really been any type of traffic analysis done with the property abutting, we're being very close to the school zone and also flanked by 2 to 3 bus stops, especially where the corners of those stone walls are. I just don't want to see kids being waiting for their bus stop behind a stone wall and a car not seeing them. I just want to make sure that we're considering the safety of the neighborhood and the traffic, the existing traffic in the neighborhood. Daycare too. There's also a daycare that just opened up, it's right next door to the right of the property. So that's just my big concern is around the traffic. And like I said, it seems like a lot of the other plans that are under proposal in the town have some type of traffic analysis associated with them. I didn't see that with these documents.
The other question
Is that all, Kevin? I guess with regards to traffic, I mean, maybe there's a question for Fred. Do you see any issues with sort of the sight lines and people pulling out? I mean, it's something that, the use has existed previously, and, the traffic wasn't a concern to my knowledge, but unless I'm missing something there, Fred.
I don't think the sight lines are a problem for the driveways on Maple Street, but there is concern on Johnson and Omaha, but those are not subject to the property that's before you tonight. So again,
Okay.
as Dave indicated, something that we could have DPW look at. If the right of way is encroached by some trees, they can trim it to the edge of the right of way, but they can't go on private property. We can look at that, but basically the answer is the driveways come out on Maple Street, and therefore that part seems to be okay.
Okay. Thanks, Fred. Kevin, do you still have, do you have any other comments or questions for the board? Kevin, if you want to unmute.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you calling in. All right, so last one from the public is John and Samantha Cantlin. If you could just please unmute, state your name and your address.
Yes, John and Samantha Cantlin here from 12 Johnson Ave. So we're going to be abutting the rear of the property as viewed from the depiction on the screen. And what's currently there are some abnormally large arborvitaes that kind of divide our property line, both the people behind us and our backyard, running the length of the back of the property there. And the concern would be either if those are going to stay, a request to get them pruned or trimmed because they're encroaching dramatically on our property. But more importantly, I guess from a visibility standpoint, looking into the back of this building, I'm not quite in a position to say whether I'm for or against it, but my concern is more going to be if it does get approved and we have 5 families living right next to us, will a fence be there, or what type of, privacy measures would be taken? So those are our primary questions right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John. All right. So I still view this, I guess, just to kind of summarize, I still think that there are some open questions that this board needs some answers on before we can make a final decision. I'll do one more around the horn for anyone on the board who has any questions or comments, and then we can go to staff and the applicant. So does anyone on the board have any other questions or comments with regards to this case? I don't see any hands. Staff, Bob, Fred.
Just a couple quick points. I did send a letter to you from the Groundwater Advisory Committee. Mr. Cooley had asked for a continuance to next month for them to weigh in and make a recommendation. And so they in turn asked the board to continue the hearing. I just wanted to point out that if the hearing is continued, that the Groundwater Committee typically meets on the second Tuesday of the month. And I'd ask any comments or any more information once it's obtained from town council and Mr. Cooley's attorney, that it comes to the Groundwater Committee about a week before so they can review that and then get a recommendation to you in time for your next meeting.
Okay. So Fred, basically just the next,
It's really
11th?
Yep, the 11th would be their regular date. If we can get some information for them to review, if there's anything new, then that would be around the 5th. If that's not doable, I know your meeting's not till the 25th. We could try to work on something later in the month of July before the 25th, so you could get comments from the Groundwater Committee.
Okay. And so do you have a list of things that the Groundwater Advisory Committee needs, or is it stuff that we've been talking about, whether it's the lots and that?
It's really confirmation on the lots, the grandfather position and what we're looking at, so they could make you a proper recommendation based upon the size. The big thing is, as we've all, if it's just the 129, then they can go forward and make it, and they could make a recommendation on the size of the building, but it really is not part of their purview. It really, their requirements are based upon the number of bedrooms and the size of the septic system. If that's 5 bedrooms, then it's 110 gallons per bedroom and it's already protected and they can go ahead. If it's anything more than that, then some kind of a variance or something might be required, but it sounds like the Board of Health is able to restrict the number of bedrooms. The only question is if it's not, if the grandfathering is not there, then we're looking at a bigger lot and what else can happen there. So I just want to get confirmation on that so we can give you something.
Got it. Thank you, Fred. And I assume for the applicant that, you will work as hard as you can to get Fred the information he needs before hopefully the next Groundwater Advisory Committee on July 11th.
Yep. Yeah, and that's no problem. And I know the grandfathering use is already there because town council has already weighed in on that with Bob and I and my attorney. So the grandfathering use is not a subject up for question. The grandfathering use is still there with 129 Maple Street. I think the only other thing that I'll say is prior to me buying this property, I met with Bob and Lori, and from the original day one discussion, this had been, the plan of the building with the 5 separate units. And, I just can't stress enough with, the safety and the paths here. This is the best way to reconstruct this building, with bringing it up to the building code, with the fire suppression system, with the 1 hour, fire sheetrock installed. This is the best way for the community and the town after having a catastrophe here to rebuild this in this manner. So like I said, prior to building this, I met with Bob and Lori, went over the design, and this has been the design prior to purchasing this property.
Okay. All right. Susie, I
Mr.
see you
Chair,
had-
yeah, can
Susie,
I ask
see
a
you had-
question?
Yep. And
Can
then
we-
I think,
Can we not do the same fire suppression system in a smaller building?
sorry, say that again.
Can we not do the same fire suppression system in a smaller building?
Fire suppression systems are installed in residential units regardless of the size. If you have
Okay.
4 micro units put together, you're putting in a sprinkler system.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, you know, that many housing units contained within one block.
Yeah.
That's the reasoning for the separation and the suppression system.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Bob. Jeff Grabowski, I saw you had your hand raised. I don't know. I'm not sure if you had any other questions, but
Nope, I'm good, Paul. Thanks.
okay, cool.
So,
So
Mr.
if there's-
Chair,
Yep, Fran.
just to confirm, because the current building prior to the fire had 5 apartments, 12 rooms, 7 residents. We're now looking at increasing it from 3,900 square feet to 4,900 square feet, 5 units, 10 rooms, potentially 5 to 10 residents, right? I mean, just confirming that that's the area we're in.
So, okay, so I guess what I would say is, I don't have it. So the current building is, I believe, about 3,900, and this is the fire
3,990.
building. Yep, 3,990, a finished area, and I believe it's 4,500 or 4,600, somewhere around there. Of gross.
Right,
And then the new building is 7,400 of finished and 13,900 of gross.
But the footprint itself is not that much bigger. I get the fact that it has a partially finished attic at 500 square feet, that gets added.
Yeah, the footprint, I don't know, I don't have the numbers. I'm looking at the property record thing, but
Right, yeah, I'm just looking at the picture, the picture. It's not, it's not like double in size. It's still 5 one-bedroom units.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Correct. There's at the current building now, there's a lot of unfinished space. So essentially, if I was to rebuild the unit that was there, I could finish off that space. When I rebuild the unit, in the current demeanor, not in the current demeanor, I'm going to finish essentially finish the attic space.
Mhm. So theoretically, if the building could be saved, you could put more than 5 units in it by finishing some of the unfinished space.
That would be a question for Bob. I think it's zoned as a 4 to 8 unit building. And the difference is you have to remember is it's only a 5-bedroom septic.
It's a septic, got it.
Yeah, the limiting factor is the capacity of the septic system.
it's also Fred, a pre-existing non-conforming lot. So obviously multifamily is not allowed in this part of town, but it existed as a 5 unit. If they were to make it 8 or 10 or whatever, then they would need to get whatever, a variance or a special permit to sort of get that. So
got it.
That's sort of, yep. Okay. So if anyone has any other questions, Mr. Cooley, I see your hand is raised. Do you have any other questions or?
No, I don't have anything. I don't know if Justin has something, but I'm all set.
Okay. So I think at this time, we can have a motion to continue this meeting to the next ZBA meeting on July 25th. at 6 p.m.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Mark.
I'd like to make a motion that we consider a continuance for the property at 129 Maple Street to our July 25th meeting
At 6 p.m.
at 6
Second.
p.m.
Second.
Okay. Mark made the motion. Brad seconded. Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Brad,
Aye.
Fran. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys at the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
All right, so next up on the agenda is to consider the petition for SAL III 305-309 Main Street LLC for a special permit for use, special permit for groundwater protection overlay district, and special permit with site plan approval for the operation of drive-through food service at the existing structure of 305 and 309 Main Street, map 47, parcel 7 and 8 in the Business East zoning district and groundwater protection overlay district area 3. Okay. So for this one, Fred, do you know who is the James
Tatro is the engineer.
Yep. Okay.
Sam Lodiff is the applicant. Tom Reardon, I believe, is his architect. And I don't know if there's anyone else on their team.
Okay. So I just added Sam, James, and Tom.
Fred, we're also looking for Marshall Gould.
Okay.
Marshall Gould.
And Scott Thornton. And Larry Green. Sorry, cast of thousands, sorry.
All right. So everyone should be in the meeting. So Sam, Scott, Tom, Larry, and James. Is that everybody?
And Marshall.
And Marshall. Sorry,
No
Marshall.
problem.
I thought you were retiring. Can't leave us.
Soon.
Oh, geez.
All right.
Is that a real background, Marshall?
I wish.
All right. So I guess you guys want to just give us a rundown?
Sure. If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure thing.
The parties, just so everyone will know who everyone is, Marshall Gould, the attorney, Sam Lodiff is the owner of the property. We have James Tatro with Azimuth Land Design. Tom Reardon, I think you all know, is the architect. Scott Thornton is a traffic engineer who's done multiple projects and studies in the town of Northborough. And Larry Green has done, from McCarthy Engineering, has done the landscape architecture. So we are all on tonight. What we would like to do is give a presentation starting with what the existing conditions are, move to the new site plan, have Tom then talk about the building design. We can point out the landscaping, and then we have a short presentation on traffic and internal circulation, and we're all available to answer any questions. So I think everybody has seen the petition. You all know what this is. And the site of this is at the former Texas Barbecue. And before that, it was a Stan's Sub Shop. So it's been a food operation for a long, long time. If I could, I'd like to call on James to give the presentation. from the civil engineer's perspective on existing conditions in the new site plan.
Sure. Thank you, Marshall. I'm going to share my screen if I may.
Sure.
No. Okay, I hope this is going to work. But tell me if you're looking at a picture of the building as it is now.
We are.
Okay.
Yes.
So what you see is from the perspective of standing at the corner of Bartlett and Route 20 is looking into the site at the existing building. Obviously, it's unfortunately something of an eyesore. And you see in front of it and just beyond it, some degree of pavement, but no landscaping really whatsoever. And it's nothing to write home about. I'm going to quickly show you a couple more views of the site. Here's in the middle of the site, looking eastward to where the site is at the intersection of East Main Street and Route 20. The site has over 1,000 feet of frontage. It's on the north side of Route 20 between Bartlett Street and the East Main Street intersection with Route 20. Also has frontage on East Main Street. Here's just a quick look also at, this is over at the east end of the site, looking across East Main Street at number 187 East Main Street. And here's one more quick look. This is along the boundary with number 168 East Main Street. That's a property at the corner of Bartlett and East Main. And this just shows you at the side of the building, there is already existing pavement and there's a very strong stand of arborvitae. And it's not totally readily apparent here, but that driveway and building next door on 168 East Main Street is quite a bit higher actually than this property. So I'm going to jump now to the site plan. This is the existing facility. It's just something of an eyesore, unfortunately. This is the site plan as of right now, which has been developed after multiple meetings with town staff, Fred and Lori, and with Bob, and after having met with the design review committee and with the planning board. Initially, we came in with a site plan which just showed an access onto Route 20, and again, utilizing the existing building, creating a nicely set off parking where it's just sort of paved area, and adding new paving over on the east side. It was strongly suggested, I guess I should say, to us to add an access onto East Main Street, which we did here. We then further developed the site plans, came in and met with design review committee and with the planning board, and they voiced concerns, especially with the traffic flow and with pedestrian safety. So we took additional measures to call out. You have a proposed sidewalk here on East Main Street, a proposed sidewalk striped extra here through the site. And we are proposing, we're in front of you because we have in this zoning district, Business East, the restaurant use is a use by right. We're asking for approval of a special permit for also being able to have a drive-through with that. Again, you have the existing building here, which we're not proposing to alter the footprint at all. Tom will go into the beautiful building that an exterior that he's designed for this, but we're going to utilize that existing building with no addition. And as I showed you again, you had the picture taken from a perspective about where I'm rotating the cursor. You have an existing paved lane beside this building right now. So we intend to utilize that. We have queuing for at least 9 cars, could be as many as 11, for a drive-through lane on the west side of this building. Now, initially, we had this drive-through lane coming back to the main parking area, and that was a point of concern of both the design review committee and the planning board. And we had additional discussions with the town planner and the town engineer, and what we came up with was to take this drive-through lane and separate it and have it run out to Route 20 with separate right and left turns, so that the left turn wouldn't, a vehicle turning left wouldn't, if it's had any difficulty, wouldn't slow up other vehicles and back this up. And we, again, at the urging of town staff and those boards, added additional measures to try and make this safe for folks on site who are going to cross this path. I should point out, the intention is to have order windows over here on the east side of the building and pickup windows over here on the south side of the building. And we're going to have picnic tables in these areas, each of these spots that I'm stopping at, and to allow a safe travel from, say, someone ordering and then picking up and then walking there. We're going to have signage as a vehicle leaves the drive-through. We're going to install a rumble strip to both audibly and in a tactile sense, make clear to the driver that you've got to be awake here. There's something serious you've got to pay attention to. And also a painted and extra striped crosswalk for pedestrians. So I guess I want to also quickly point out, I know this is very late at night. We're going to utilize the existing septic system of this building. We're going to utilize its existing electrical connection, which comes across from East Main Street to a pole and underground. We're going to utilize the existing water connection to this building. And Tom is going to remake this building into something nearly beautiful, as opposed to the eyesore that you saw in the first picture. We're going to add a drainage system to this site where there is none. Right now, this site is sort of the low point of the area. It's lower than over here at East Main Street. And at the intersection, it's lower than East Main Street over here to the north of it. It's lower than Route 20 to the south of it. And it's lower than Bartlett Street over here. It is sort of the local low point of the area. And right now, because there's no drainage system, water has to puddle up and then make its way out to the culvert over here that conveys flow under Route 20. We're going to install a drainage system which will meet the DEP stormwater management standards, which will collect runoff at multiple points, run it through a CDS stormwater filter unit, and then infiltrate. And so we're taking the other existing utilities are adequate and we're going to use them, but there is no drainage system on site at present. And we're going to install one which meets all of the DEP stormwater standards, and I think is a huge upgrade. And after Tom is going to go into the look of the building, but we're also going to show you the very extensive landscaping proposed here. We've got over 100 shrubs, more than 40 trees. There's also a huge number of ground cover plants. Larry Green, the landscape architect on the project, and the applicant, Mr. Lodov, spent hours going over what plants were going to be where and in what density. This was taken very seriously, and it's going to be a massive upgrade in appearance versus the existing site. Right now, this site is, to some degree, one of the first properties you see coming into Northborough. You could use that phrase, the gateway to Northborough. And it's something of an eyesore. In the future, it's going to be very aesthetically pleasing. It's going to be very attractive and a positive asset to the town. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to hand it over, I think, back to Marshall. And Marshall, you want to hand it over to Tom, and Tom, you can say if you need for me to keep sharing on screen. I've got the pictures queued up and ready to go if you want.
Thank you, James. Tom, if you're ready, proceed, please. You might want to unmute yourself.
Okay, appreciate that, Marshall. My name's Tom Reardon. I'm the project architect. As Sam has pointed out, the existing building is about 40 by 45, 1,800 square feet. We're not changing that footprint. The structure is concrete block, flat roof, about 12 feet high, so we're not increasing the height. What we're proposing to do is to create a building that is appropriate for Business East. We think the use and the design, the architecture is appropriate for this area. We're doing dramatic improvements to the building, the landscaping, the site drainage, and another feature is that the building as it currently exists has no insulation of the walls, the floor, and minimal roof. So what you see in this rendering is the application 3 to 4 inch rigid insulation on the exterior of the wall. It's called exterior insulation finish system, and you're able to get different colorations and some striations to create the banding. And this will enable us to bring this building up to current energy standards. The fact that we're also reusing an existing building is an application of what's called embodied energy. We're saving on not doing site costs or pouring new concrete or expending a lot of money on new construction systems. So that's a savings. That's a form of sustainability. So the building shell is going to be made energy efficient. We're using embodied energy by keeping an existing structure and by having a family owned and run small business in town. We can encourage people to walk, bike, and drive to this new ice cream facility. So we think it's a wonderful addition to Northborough. I think we could go to the site design with the landscaping.
Thank you, Tom. Is Larry here and can he share his screen?
Yes, good evening.
Great.
All right, so good evening, Larry Green. James, thank you for sharing that. So I'm just going to take a minute and just talk about the landscape design. And as James touched on, this is not your typical commercial landscape design. There was great effort was put into this design with meeting with the client, walking the property multiple times, multiple design iterations, multiple plant selections to really ensure that this plan had, true ornamental interests, year-round color, blooming cycles, varying color textures, plants that would complement the architecture, abutting buildings, provide screening, just great effort. And James touched on, even if you look at just pure numbers, we're proposing almost 200 trees, shrubs, and ground covers on this plan. So I'm just going to quickly go through the design. I'm going to start at the corner of Bartlett Street and kind of walk in a counterclockwise fashion. So in that area, that's going to be the existing lawn area, picnic area. So behind there, there's a arborvitae hedgerow we're proposing. To the left of that, we're maintaining existing wooded area, nice old dense buffer. And then coming to the corner of Bartlett Street, we really want to provide some, beauty, screening, visual interest. So I'm just going to touch on some plants. You got stuff like smoke bush, Korean trees, dogwoods, cypress, spirea, winterberry, ornamental grasses, 9-bark. I know some of that sounds funny to you guys, but that's just a broad spectrum of plants. Great variety of color, texture, blooming cycles, great visual interest. And then working my way counterclockwise to the front of the site, kind of just to right there. As James talked about, we're going to complement that, enlarge that existing stormwater basin. In that area, what we kind of talked about was we kind of want that to buffer the parking lots, but also kind of be our area of native plantings. We're introducing some dogwoods, some viburnums, some northern bayberry, just variety of color textures, again, blooming cycles, just to continue to provide that varied interest, blooming cycle, buffer, screening, accents, habitat, just all the above on this property. And then just going to the rear of the site, I'll be honest, this back area, a lot of effort went into this design of this buffer along East Main Street. And when I first walked the site, I'll be candid, I thought, wow, maybe we should preserve that existing, plantings in that area, but then, we probably walked that wooded area probably 2-3 times, and that's just not a healthy plant community. There's 3 variety of endangered species in there. There's a lot of dieback in there. There's, old spoil piles. So it's just not a healthy plant community. So in that area, we worked really hard to create a tiered planting, mixing in varied colors and textures to provide screening, again, blooming cycle. If you're talking about plants like spruce trees, your ornamental willow, your junipers, your cypress, your privet, your birch trees, your upright arborvitaes, your upright oak trees, just a vast variety of colors and textures. Then complementing that, you're into your roses, your birch trees, your dogwoods, your eastern redbud, ornamental beech trees. Just as I get excited about this because there's as this grows, it's gonna be a beautiful tiered color texture pattern and for this neighborhood and for the property. And that's my quick summary.
Okay, thank you very much, Larry. The last person I'd like to introduce is Scott Thornton from Vanass and Associates. Scott is a well-known in the area traffic engineer. He's worked on many projects in Northborough, Westborough, and surrounding communities. Scott, if you're still with us, could you just comment on both internal traffic circulation and this design for external traffic?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the introduction, Marshall. Again, for the record, Scott Thornton with Vanass and Associates. We were asked to look at the site plan, the modifications to the site plan from the initial submittal, and look at internal and external circulation. And I think that the way the site plan has evolved has really enhanced and improved traffic circulation. You've got access to Route 20, which is a principal arterial, and then you've also got access to East Main Street, which is a major collector roadway. I agree with both the town planner and the town engineer who recommended access to both of those locations. I think that, the route going back to Route 20, it carries about 12,500 vehicles a day. East Main Street carries about 3,500 vehicles a day. So these are both well-traveled roadways. We would expect about, based on that rough approximation, we would expect that about 3/4 of the traffic to enter and exit the site by way of Route 20, with the rest of it out onto East Main Street. We think the site's laid out well. There's sufficient parking. There's, as James mentioned, there's room for 9 cars in the drive-through queue. And then that drive-through exits directly onto Route 20. I think that the access out to East Main Street is logical, given the fact that there's a neighborhood of probably 100 to 200 homes up off of Little Pond Road, Allison Road, up in that area. And that traffic could have really a direct access into the sites from East Main Street. Whereas if that connection wasn't there, that traffic would have to circulate through this segment of East Main Street back onto Route 20 to then circulate back up to Bartlett Street, or just coming in Bartlett Street and then making the left turn into the site from Route 20. So we think it's an improvement and a good solution to address the traffic circulation there. In terms of the overall traffic generation, you know, it's a ice cream shop with a limited menu, so there's no indoor seating. We think that that's probably going to, you know, there'll be some people that will appeal to, but I think there are some folks that won't appeal to, that are looking for for more of a full service type restaurant. In terms of, what was there previously with the Texas barbecue, that had some level of activity associated with it. I do remember going there a few times for lunch and dinner after meetings. And there were times that it was pretty busy, but most of their traffic activity was, I think, off peak, which is similar to this use. I think, the morning time period, there'd be more activity here, but other than that, it would be off peak, similar to the barbecue use. I think just in summing up, I think it's there's a well thought out pedestrian access plan as James went through with the access to the picnic tables, and there's a painted crosswalk, and then to alert motorists that are exiting the drive-through, there's a rumble strip that's there that will definitely get your attention. There's a bicycle rack that's proposed for both for customers and for employees. And we think in general, the site plan has come a long way since the initial submittal. That's all I have for traffic, Marshall. I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you. You're muted, Marshall.
I had muted myself. The presentation is largely done. We didn't want to go into excessive detail, figuring that if there are any questions, it might be better to approach it that way.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marshall. Appreciate it. So obviously this plan that you are showing in front of us was finalized on the 16th, right?
Correct.
And so like design review has not seen this, nor have they signed off on sort of their final plan or have discussed this plan. Is that correct?
That is correct. Some of the changes that have been made are as a result of design review and also from having met with the planning board and obviously with staff.
Okay, great. So I think the first thing what I would say is I do see that there is a letter from the fire chief, and maybe this is for Fred or Bob, but basically with this new updated plan, if that can just be circulated around town for any additional comments from the fire chief, because I think he had a question about sort of a lack of protection for the area where the picnic tables are located. It looks like there's a guardrail around the west and east side. I kind of just want to give him the opportunity to comment. Also, if the police chief has any other comments with regards to traffic as well, give them that opportunity with this new updated design.
Sure.
So I think just quickly, I think Larry, you were talking about the vegetation. I just had a quick question. Do you have a view from East Main Street on what all that trees and shrubbery looks like? I think we all kind of have an idea what it currently looks like, but I guess what is the proposed from East Main Street?
So that image right there is from East Main Street, looking. That'd be what kind of in a westerly direction.
Okay, so that looks like you're standing on Route 20, looking down towards East Main Street. Okay,
correct.
Okay, and then I guess,
Chairman, one of the things you can see by that picture is how the elevation all around this property, Route 20, East Main, and Bartlett, all much higher. So here you might see the tops of the cars, but you are not seeing the base of the sloped area within the center of this. So a lot of the traffic inside the site and the pedestrians will not be visible from this view.
okay, thanks, Marshall. I'm more asking sort of if you're standing on, say, like Little Pond Road and East Main, what does that look like? I know that there's obviously an elevation change, from about 294 feet-ish where Little Pond and East Main intersect to, I believe, 290 feet. So there is that sort of downward sloping thing. I just would be, be interested to see that. That's all.
Come on. Well, yeah, that's not what it looks like. Come on. It's not what it's going to look like.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, sorry, Brad. So I guess my next question is, so can you confirm, it looks like there are sidewalks that sort of connect to 168 East Main Street and run along sort of East Main. Can you just confirm that that's accurate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, James Tatro again. I switched back to the site layout plan. There's an existing sidewalk on the north side of number 168 East Main Street, about where I'm running the cursor here. And we are proposing to extend it to our entrance. And there is also an existing sidewalk at Bartlett Street at the corner of Route 20 over here. Again, where I'm circling the cursor, and we are proposing to extend that sidewalk also to the site entrance.
Okay. And so I guess where that cursor is there along Route 20, that will be sort of along Route 20 and then connect to where that sort of paving stone walkway is. So if someone's walking along, they would just obviously be able to walk if they had a stroller or something. And then obviously for the East Main sidewalk, was there no comments on like how would someone enter the facility from that area?
Sure. They would cross the sidewalk here and come down this walk indicated here into the facility, and then get across to walk here, sidewalk as striped here, and sidewalk that leads to the order windows.
Okay. So will there be markings there? Sorry. From the East Main entrance or?
Yes, there'll be this hatching. This will be a sidewalk with striping. It won't just be the two stripes, the two white lines. It'll be the white lines with striping across them, just as indicated in the hatching, to make it very, very obvious exactly where pedestrians are to be going.
Okay. Okay, I think I understand that now. All right, I got you. Okay. So I think that, the reason why, this project is in front of us, right, is, this use, an ice cream shop in theory, is a by right use, right? You guys can move in and you can redo this entire property as is, right? But without the drive-through. So really the whole reason why you're in front of us today, right, is because of the drive-through, and that requires a special permit and to come in front of the ZBA. So I just want to say, first off, I appreciate you guys putting all the time and effort in for, the designs, the architecture, the landscaping. I think that everything on the surface looks very good. But for us, for our board, what we're, focusing on is sort of the special permit because of the drive-through. I guess what would be the hours? What is the expected hours of operation for this business?
The applicant is going to be the owner. He's not just the owner of the property, and he's not just going to lease it out. He and a family member are involved, along with a person who was formerly the general manager of a Cheesecake Factory restaurant. They have gotten together and they have decided that they want to be able to not just have business in the summertime when people might go out to buy ice cream, but they're going to want to open up early enough that they will sell breakfast sandwiches and lunch sandwiches as well as the ice cream.
Whoa.
Okay. So is there hours of operation that you expect? I mean, like breakfast
There-
sandwiches, coffee, is that a 7 a.m., 6 a.m.?
Their
I mean, I think-
preference would be 6 a.m.
Okay. And then ice cream shop, is that like a 9 p.m., 10 p.m. type of?
I think that would probably depend on the weather, but in the height of the summer, when it's late, Sam, have you decided how late you wanted to do the ice cream? Sam, you might be muted.
We're looking to go until at least 9, maybe 10, or be wrapped up by 10.
Okay. So the expected operation for this is roughly 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., assuming there's some sort of lead time into that, you know, when it opens. And so it's going to be the full scale of breakfast, lunch, and some kind of, you know, food for dinner and ice cream and stuff. And so I guess my next question is like what is the business case for having the drive-through in terms of like how many cars do you need to sort of cycle through that would make it sort of worthwhile in your estimation?
Sam, do you have an answer to what the expectation is for drive-through versus people who come up to the window?
I don't.
Certainly in the bad weather, the drive-through is going to be the preferred option. What do you have to say, Sam?
Well, I mean, the idea behind the drive-through was a convenience factor. It wasn't so much, of course, about the profit you'd make having a drive-through, but as a parent, you know, when we designed the place, it came up as, you know, a lot of times you just can't get out of your car when you have kids in it. And the idea behind it was to build a drive-through. So family members, it would be convenient for them. That was the total motivation behind it. And with ice cream, you know, if you've ever been to West Boylston, there's a drive-through Dairy Queen there. And you'll see people with kids in their car getting ice cream all the time because they can't. And sometimes, you know, the kid falls asleep and one doesn't. So it really was motivated off of a family experience of my own. So that's where we came up with the drive-through idea. And it would make the operation, I think, you know, move more smoothly because the people who are coming through the drive-through typically aren't going to hang around in the parking lot. They're going to be on their way. So that was the motivation behind it.
Okay. Cool. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Mr. Chair. So now,
1 sec. Brad,
sorry, Mr.
Brad,
Chair.
hold-
No,
Brad,
no, sorry, Mr. Chair.
no.
Like, no,
Brad,
no.
Brad,
No.
hold on a sec, Brad. Brad, I have a couple more questions. All right. So there's I just want to go over the groundwater advisory committee's letter. Fred, are you still? Yeah, Fred's still here.
I'm still here.
Yeah. So have you guys had a chance to sort of go through the letter that was dated yesterday? And do you guys have any comments or questions from Fred's letter?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. I think we understood from the meeting with the committee what needed to be done, what the concerns were.
Okay. And then Fred, is there anything that stood out to you as being something out of the ordinary with regards to the groundwater advisory committee's concerns or their letter?
No, the couple of the important things were the first item that talks about the information that's supposed to come with an application for a special permit determining, you know, hazardous chemicals or storage or anything on site. The zoning interpretation that the building inspector provided called for 2 sections of the bylaw. One was in case there was any storage of toxic or hazardous material, and without that list on item number 1 being provided, I can't say for sure that there isn't some requirement that there should be some reporting. My sense is that they don't have any toxic or hazardous materials. We just want to make sure that those items that are required for a special permit are submitted so that we can then say that part of the zoning bylaw is not applicable. But again, I think it's an easy thing for them to submit. It's just a matter of it didn't come with the application.
Okay. Thanks, Fred. And then I guess my final question is, do you have any sense on, and this is kind of just off of this, it's an earlier question from me about the business case for the drive-through, on any sense of capacity or constraints, or like how many customers you think you'll be able to serve in a 30-minute or 60-minute period, or any sort of stats like that? Any sort of analysis?
It depends on what they order. If you compare it to a Starbucks, it's not going to be a Starbucks because it's an upstart. But if you were to get someone in a drive-through from an order window to the window, you're averaging about, Starbucks likes to be 55 seconds or like a minute 10. The idea is to keep the drive-through moving along as fast as possible. And we have this system where we're coming up with so if ice creams are being ordered at the window, the order board, they're already set in like a freezer, so they're ready to go. It's not like you get up there, wait. And so we've been trying to mimic times like Chick-fil-A and Starbucks in order to move the traffic through there. I don't have the data to support that, but that's been the plan all along. Because there's not a lot of menu items that you can order. And even though you can order ice cream, you're going to have all the stuff on the order board, what you can order. And then of course, if you do have the person who delays it, it'll be no different than if the person in front of you at Dunkin' or Starbucks, messes up their order and that holds the line back. But the objective is to expedite the line as fast as possible to move them back out of the parking lot. I don't have wait times for you though, because we haven't done that measurement.
Okay.
Also, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say one more thing.
Yep.
We're not serving dinner of any type. It just stops at lunch and it's ice cream for the brunt of it.
Okay. But there will be sort of breakfast sandwiches?
Yeah, it's more, it's there. There's only going to be 4 breakfast sandwiches. Again, we're trying to keep it simple and fast so that there's nothing there that someone can linger about. But there's nothing more than that because that we are primarily focused on ice cream. But you did say something before, and if someone wants an ice cream, 8 o'clock in the morning, we'd be more than happy to give it to them. But I really don't think we're going to start selling that until around 11, the ice cream would begin, and that would carry throughout the day.
Okay. Well, I don't think you've ever met my kids before, but
so we're there to aim to please.
Got it. And then I guess just from a, I know you guys have been through, and this will be my last questions, and then I'll get to the other members of the board. I know you guys have been through several plans. I guess for me, seeing this plan and the drive-through, I think the one thing that concerns me the most with regards to the traffic and the drive-through is making the left out of the drive-through. I think that it seems to me where that curb cut is located on Route 20 is sort of where the westbound expands into 2 lanes and the eastbound goes from 2 to 1. So you are sort of cutting across 2 lanes at that point. And of course, this section of Route 20, I believe is 45 miles an hour as well. So I just want to say from a high level, just looking at this and not seeing the data behind it, but I think that left-hand turn does seem concerning to me. And I'm just wondering if there was thought put into, if you were coming through the drive-through, that you make it a right-hand turn only. And then if you do want to head east on Route 20, it sort of siphons you through and around to Bartlett Street. And that'll be my last question for right now.
Well, just quickly, Mr. Chairman, in regard to that, if a driver leaving the drive-through wishing to go east, if he heads down Bartlett Street, and he wants to go east, he might think he's gonna go east from East Main Street, but he can't do that. You can't make a left out of East Main Street onto Route 20. So we've sort of trapped a driver. If he's trying to go east, we won't let him make a left there. And
Yeah,
would just-
I guess what I'm saying is have it be right-hand turn only, and then in between where that sort of painted crosswalk is, you have them travel east, still on the property, and then siphon them out to East Main to make a left, and then make a left onto Bartlett, and then a left onto Route 20. That's just an idea. I'm not sure if you guys have already looked at that and there was issues with it, but I just figured I would bring it up.
Sure, that actually was what we had before. And the sentiment expressed by design review and the planning board was to try and separate that drive-through traffic from the traffic coming off of Route 20 into the parking area and the other traffic and pedestrians in the parking area. So we actually did have that version at a previous iteration, and we're convinced to go away from it.
Okay. I guess the only reason why I asked, or the reason I asked that question is there's a property sort of Lyman and Route 9, sort of the Burger King, Starbucks, I think it's Urgent Care as well, where they sort of, if you want to go east, or aka make a left, you have to sort of loop all the way around and then onto Lyman to then make a left. But just an idea. All right. Susie, I think you have your hand up. I think you were first, but you were first on the screen. Mark, I'll get to you next.
Good evening. I have several questions. First of all, I was shocked when I heard about breakfast sandwiches and not just ice cream, because not only did your application state ice cream and beverages, it's also shown on the plan pictures. You probably can't see it because of my background, but it says L's ice cream. It says ice cream shop on the drawing where we see the freezer. Everywhere is ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. On the sign with the little cute penguin and the bunny and everything, it says L's ice cream. So I was kind of shocked to hear about the 6 a.m. opening going to 10 p.m. I was skeptical this whole time when I was hearing about a drive-through with ice cream. I also have 3 children and I drive a minivan, and my kids are still young, so I'm still in the midst of it. And ice cream in a drive-through is like, honestly, I'll be 100% honest with you. It's my absolute worst nightmare, milk melting in a minivan. But I mean, that's my personal preference and that wouldn't weigh on my decision, but that is literally like my worst nightmare. But first I'll start off with, if you could could you go to the traffic, the aerial view with the turns? Yeah. So my problem with the left-hand turn right here is that intersection, because when you make a left-hand turn, I believe you're going from 2 lanes into 1, going towards that light, which is off screen right there. Oh, there you go. Thank you. So it kind of goes into 2 lanes into 1, and it's kind of dangerous right there. And then it's just a really kind of crazy place with all the businesses there. So I didn't know if you had thought, I don't even know if it would be better if you, I don't know, I'm not a traffic engineer, if you reversed where you're going in and out, if it would make it better. I don't know, the drive-through at this location just doesn't work for me. But I was really excited. I'm also a baseball mom and we play baseball right there, and we haven't had baseball in this area for a year, and we really missed it. So I was very excited when I heard an ice cream shop was opening, as you know, and the drive-throughs it's just the danger factor really is really bothering me. So when Paul had also mentioned getting the police chief's input, because I know I had heard from, I believe it was the planning board and possibly the design and review committee. I know we've had a lot of paperwork, and then we had your old plans and then the new plan. So I'm not sure where it was in all the paperwork, but about getting a possible peer review as well. The police chief input, and then the police detail. I don't know if that would work. As I said, the menu is throwing me a lot because ice cream and beverages is what we were being told this whole time, and the hours of operation, because you also said in your presentation that the peak hours with ice cream wouldn't be during rush hour. And if a breakfast sandwich and a beverage is actually right during rush hour. And if you watched earlier, this is also near the high school, and high school kids are hungry, and that's also during rush hour. And there's 200 to 300 student drivers that go to the high school every day. So I'll just bring up that fact again. So I think that's pretty much it. And then the sidewalk, there's section 7.09.030 about street parking and sidewalks that I didn't know if Fred could take down to have Lori look at, about sidewalks that they might have to add in the front of this lot. I like the addition about bike racks because I think that would be useful for people coming from the neighborhoods. But that's just my input for right now. One other thing that really bothered me was that we've been researching Starbucks drive-through times and Chick-fil-A for this area as well, and near this intersection. But I'll pass the baton and microphone to Mark, so to speak. Thank you.
Sorry, Mark, one sec. So I just had a question. You noted something about the sidewalks and street parking. Can you just?
Yeah, it's section 7.09.030. It's called street parking and loading. And I was looking earlier today. It's about pedestrian accommodation. If you have more than 30 off-street parking spaces in Business East, Business West districts.
Quick correction. It's if your site is required to have 30 parking spaces. We actually are exceeding our required parking here. The required parking is actually only about half what we're proposing.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask Lori about. I wasn't sure. I had a question about it when I was going through things.
Okay.
So what's the required parking here?
The required parking is actually, because it's just by employee, the way the table in the zoning code is only about a dozen or 15 spaces, and we're providing 34.
Okay.
So that Lori brought up the exact same issue, actually.
Okay.
In the earlier discussions.
Glad her and I are on the same page.
Yeah.
Say Fred a little notation there.
Thank you,
Mark.
Fred.
Okay, quick question and then into some traffic issues. First, is the ice cream menu limited to only a few items? In other words, can I not order a sundae with the fixings or my own variety of ice cream cone? How does that work? I'm wondering specifically toward the point of how fast a window ordering would be. If you had a car with 4 people and they're all ordering an ice cream, whether this is going to be a 4-minute affair or whether it's going to be, as you say, 60 seconds. Do you have?
I didn't say that we would be able to deliver in 60 seconds. I was comparing it to someone else. But the idea inside the building, we're going to have makers making things, not like your typical. So you walk up to a window, you place an order, you walk away, you go to your pickup window. Everything that comes off the drive-through order board will be expedited to a making station. So it's not as if the person taking the drive-through order walks away and goes and makes your ice cream, your sundae, whatever. It gets kicked into the monitor, and there's, 4 or 6 people making these things nonstop. So that's how we're going to try and measure the time. I can't answer that exactly again, from the order window to the pickup window. But again, the motivation is to do it with speed. It doesn't matter if there's one person in the drive-through. I'm not trying to expedite a dozen cars through the drive-through because, again, we're a startup. I don't expect that to happen. But if you're at the order window, our job as, the kind of ethos of the company is to build your sundae ice cream or what have you and get it to you as fast as I can. So again, it's not like I want to move 20 cars to the drive-through. It's just that everything that we want to do inside is, the customer service base so that we can get you your product as fast as we can. So I don't know if I
Sam,
answered
could
your
you
question
just-
100%, but
Could you just address the issue that Mark raised? Is it a limited order or will they be able to order sundaes and flavors? And
I'm sorry, Mark. Sorry. Yes, you can order whatever you want.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
The next thing is, what is your plan when there are 25 cars in the, that want to go through the drive-through and they are spilling out on East Main? What is the plan? What is the layout? What happens?
That might be better answered by Scott, our traffic engineer. Scott, do you have a comment? Would there be 25 people ever lining up? Or
It seems like just looking at it as if it was a fast food restaurant. I wouldn't expect that kind of demand at the drive-through, but I think that we could have staff nearby, keeping an eye on the situation and directing motorists to park, because there's 30 some parking spaces on site.
I mean, to go back to Susie's thing, there is a baseball field down the street, which I'm sure at least Marshall is familiar with. The baseball game gets out, everybody piles into their car. It's been a hot day. They all head down the road, stop your establishment. And yeah, you could easily have 25 cars piled, queued up in no time.
So, right. So if you have room for 9 cars in the drive-through and you have 34 parking spaces, then that can accommodate 25 cars. I think that there's probably some more review that we have to do on the overall processing times that we can expect. But again, if it was a fast food restaurant, you'd be looking at maybe 30 to 40 cars entering and exiting during the peak hours. So it's I think the site can accommodate that kind of demand.
And the other thing, having done a number of drive-throughs, Mark, it's been shown that people, unless it's pouring or snowing very hard, where ice cream will not be a big thing if it's snowing, but people aren't going to want to wait for that many cars. And even for the cars in this, if it's 9 cars, depending upon whether it's one person a car or a family with kids, it's unlikely that the ordering and processing time will be 50 seconds to a minute 10 if they have to make 3 or 4 different orders for somebody in the car versus one person in the car. And people just won't wait that long. It's like going to CVS. If you were to go to CVS downtown and see that in the drive-through, you've got to wait for more than 10 cars, people park and they go inside. It's faster. And I think the same will be true here.
All right. Yeah, that's great, Marshall. But however, we just heard this is news to me.
Brad, hold on one sec.
No,
Brad, hold on one sec. Brad, hold on one sec. Mark, are you all set, or do you have any other questions?
No, I think I've had my question answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Brad, 1 second.
No.
1 sec. Brad, hold on. Susie, I think you had your hand raised. Brad, if you want to talk, please raise your hand on the screen, please. Thank you. Susie. Susie, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just clicking too much here. I'm just really confused as if we're calling it an ice cream shop or if we should be calling it a breakfast sandwich shop. Because and I do disagree with the CVS thing, and if people will wait because of the hours at the 6 a.m. and I don't think if it wasn't an ice cream shop, we wouldn't be opening it at 6 a.m. and we wouldn't be thinking about it being open all year long. And we wouldn't be researching Starbucks, and we wouldn't be researching Chick-fil-A drive-through times either. No matter what kind of, anything. I have to ask you, are you researching becoming a franchise owner? Are you applying anywhere?
Sam, up to you.
Dairy Queen or?
No, that is not the objective.
So right now we're not doing that, and you don't plan to in the nearby future?
No, it's just the way we set it up was that we're trying to figure out a way to deliver the product as fast as we can to keep customers happy, because there can be lag times when you pick things up, and we're just practicing, hyper efficient a way to approach it.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Sam. Susie, is that all? Or do you have any other questions?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Brad, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I got a few. First off, we were talking about an ice cream shop, and then all of a sudden now we're talking about coffee, breakfast sandwiches, long lines, long hours, things like that. And then you're comparing our hours to Chick-fil-A, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks. So what are we doing here? What are we doing? Is this an ice cream shop, or is this going to be a full-fledged sandwich shop? What are we doing here?
I think the answer to that question is that this is primarily, and what will distinguish it from so many other places, is that it's an ice cream shop. And all of you know, I assume all of you know, that there have been many ice cream shops in Northborough that have opened, and there have been almost as many that have closed, including in this general part of town. And much like people who take their kids to sporting events and want to go for ice cream afterwards, it's not the sandwiches that are the draw, it's the ice cream. But living in New England, there is less ice cream sold in the wintertime. And in order for this not to go out of business, like many of the other places, they said, okay, what else can we do? So between Sam and his brother and the person that they know who used to manage a different restaurant, they came up with, and it's been explained, a very limited menu, not of ice cream, but a very limited menu of breakfast items, many of which I'm assuming, I haven't discussed with Sam, that would be pre-made and ready if somebody wanted to drive up and want a quick, sausage and cheese or egg sandwich on their way to work. This is not going to be a big brand name operation. It's not a Subway. It's not a Dunkin'. It's not a Starbucks. And the only reason that Sam looked into those times is to see what the effect would be for places and what they typically experience in drive-through. Sam is the first to say this is a startup company. He said it twice today already. So he is exploring, but he doesn't want to spend a fortune, and this project is going to be a lot of invested money.
It
He
is.
doesn't want to do this, if I could finish, he doesn't want to do this and have summer end and then have no business. So he's come up with a very reasonable accommodation. it is primarily an ice cream shop, and that's how it will get noticed and remembered. That's a lot easier than if you open up a place that says John's Sandwiches. People go for ice cream and there aren't many options available. But to keep the place able to pay its bills in the non-ice cream season, yes, there are going to be other uses, and it would be a waste if there were not. This is not a place where you can go for indoor dining either in the summer, fall, any other season. So the drive-through is absolutely it is a convenience to customers, as Sam has pointed out. And people do not wait forever in a drive-through. And I know that Susie disagreed with me on CVS, but I've represented, I did Northborough Crossing. I represented the Burger King coming in and the Starbucks, and I also represented the project that Paul referred to earlier, Convenient MD and Burger King and Starbucks. So I heard all the studies of how long people are willing to wait before they park and go inside at a drive-through, and people are not going to wait for 25 or whatever cars when they see that there are 30 parking spaces.
Yes, Marshall, I agree with you. However, we've been.
Brad, do you still have another? Brad, hold on. Do you have one more? Do you have another question?
What?
Go ahead, Brad.
We've been told that the application that we are talking about tonight is an ice cream shop, and all of a sudden now it's not just ice cream, it's all this stuff, it's all this other stuff. All right. And now I feel for lack of a better term, bamboozled. Like, I thought this was an ice cream shop, and all of a sudden now it's breakfast sandwiches and things like that. And we've dealt with this and throughout the town. And so I feel like I've been fleeced as a resident and as a member of zoning board.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Marshall, I guess just to clarify, the proposal is the expected hours of operations potentially is 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. You'll be serving beverages, which could include coffee. There could be some, fast food sandwiches, burgers, that sort of thing. That's kind of, that's what we should be looking at.
Smoothies are a big thing in the morning. People get fruit smoothies or they get other things.
Smoothies.
And the same thing on ice cream.
Okay. So just so we're clear, that's the proposal.
So ice cream and smoothies?
Brad, hold on. Brad. Marshall, is that a fair assessment? Drinks, beverages, some food operating between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m.
Yes.
I mean, the point of this meeting is to clarify exactly what the proposal is, right?
Understood.
So
Understood. And I want to stress it is primarily an ice cream operation. But any of the if you were to go to most ice cream operations, they will also serve beverages if you want a soda, if you want an iced tea, if you want a coffee, whatever. But they'll also have snacks. We're not a sit-down operation. I used to live in Framingham, and people would always talk about Cabot's ice cream. But certainly they were a full-service restaurant, but it was known as Cabot's ice cream. The reputation will be an ice cream shop, but it will offer other things, not as the primary draw, but in effect, to make sure that the business survives.
Okay. So, yes, so this board will take it as what you guys have presented to us today, and whatever was on an application or was said in a meeting or whatever is not irrelevant, but we will take you at what you are presenting here today. Fran, I see you have your hand up. Bob, I'll get to you after this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So a couple of things. I just want to, no offense to the person who was making this application, but this is not a new idea. Friendly's sells food and ice cream, has a drive-through. Dairy Queen in West Boylston has a very limited menu, serves food and ice cream, and they have the drive-throughs. Our responsibility can be to put conditions on this that make it palatable. I agree. I'm not a fan of the 6 in. Both the Dairy Queen and the Friendlies are a 10 to 9 operation and offer and are open to 12 months a year. We can actually get to a point where we put conditions on something, and then the applicant has the option of either adhering to those conditions or back, changing their model. We don't have to try to say no. We can try to come up with reasonable conditions that might make this work for him or might not, but fit within our responsibility. I don't think 6 to 10 is reasonable because that is really more like it's not primarily an ice cream shop at that point, but a 10 to 9 or, where ice cream is the primary. I think that turning left on Route 20 is really dangerous. I don't know why it was decided that looping them back through the parking lot so that they could get at the light at Bartlett was altered. But I think that we probably need to find that out, because I don't care if people get stuck going right. They're going to get stuck going right because they're not going to be able to cross over those 2 lanes at the Bartlett Street. But we have to figure out how to get to a point where we can talk about what kind of conditions we would want, instead of keep going back to the applicant and saying, well, what do you mean about this or what do you mean about that, so that we can move forward.
Yeah, just to reiterate Fran's point, I agree, Fran, thank you very much. What the applicant is asking for is what they're proposing, right? And we as a board can decide to limit, put conditions on the hours of operation, or whether it's traffic, but really this is about the drive-through and the traffic safety and the pedestrian safety and that component specifically. If they wanted to open up a smoothie shop or a coffee shop tomorrow, they are well within their right to do so. They just can't have a drive-through, right? They wanted to open up a Texas barbecue, which I kind of wish they would, but they're not. But if they did, they can do that tomorrow, right? This is really what's in front of us, is about the drive-through, the traffic safety, and everything else, right? And we can, as a board, put conditions on hours of operations, or we can work with design review or try to understand what is the thesis or the basis for all the traffic flow. And that's our job, right? As the board, to sort of take in all that information, come up with conditions that we feel are good, and then take a vote on it. And either it's a yes vote with conditions or it's a no vote, right? And that's sort of what we're here to do. But specifically what's in front of us is only because there is a drive-through in the proposal. Okay. Bob.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
think we're going to do Bob, and then we'll do public comments after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarity here. The bylaw citation for the proposed use is a drive-through food service, and it's a food service establishment in which food prepared and sold at retail may be consumed on the premises or purchased at a drive-up window. Okay, that's the definition. Whether they're serving ice cream, smoothies, breakfast sandwiches, pizzas, or fish and chips to go, I think there would be a very difficult time enforcing, walking in there and saying you can't have that on the menu. Okay, it does not disqualify or super qualify one food over another in the definition of the use. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. We'll try not to put a condition that says that they can serve only single cheeseburgers as opposed to double cheeseburgers or something. All right. So this is a public meeting. If you are on a Zoom, if you could just click raise hand on the Zoom function. And if you are dialed in by phone, if you can please press *9. Just a reminder, we will try to keep things brief, as it is 10:30 at night. So if you could please keep your comments brief, and also please state your name, your full name, and your address. So Megan, Sowens. You have your hand raised. If you can please unmute.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Megan. How are you?
Hi, Megan Sowens of 4 Little Pond Road. Yeah, I mean, anyways, I think this proposal sounds pretty cool, but as it relates to the traffic, right? So I frequent both on foot and by car, of course, East Main and obviously Little Pond. So I guess the only 2 requests that I ask that the board considers is I think it's amazing that the sidewalks would be added. So there's definitely some things being addressed. There is obviously only really one crosswalk to get from Little Pond across East Main Street. As residents of town know, like cars come pretty hot off Main Street down East Main. And I know there was quoted numbers of how many cars come by the area. I'd imagine most of those are not coming by from the area of Bartlett, to East Main. That's a pretty low traffic area. I think most of the East Main traffic is kind of west of Bartlett. So I guess to get to my point is having the entrance coming off East Main. I do think overflow traffic there needs to be managed because I think entrance to the Little Pond Road neighborhood has the potential to be blocked during, I would define peak hours as like post baseball games or such, where if there is overflow on a drive-through like we see at other restaurants in in Marlboro and even on Dunkin' Donuts in Northborough, if that's blocking East Main Street and Little Pond, as a resident, I would have a concern. So that's part 1. And then part 2, and then I'll be done, is just the sidewalks would be a major enhancement. If we are going to be increasing traffic headed between Bartlett and East Main going that way to create an entrance, I do think that crosswalk would need like some flashers or a light, because I do assume traffic would be increasing in that direction. And it's obviously a neighborhood that's sought after families and kids. So we just want to be careful with people.
Okay, great. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. All right. David Cooley. If you could just please state your name and your address.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
David Cooley, 280 West Street, Northborough. I actually own the abutting property at 168 East Main Street, although it says Tim Shea on it. I purchased that property about a year ago. First, I'd like to commend Sam on this. Obviously this property has been an eyesore and been for sale for about 10 years in town. What his team has developed and designed is nothing but impeccable. I mean, what this would add to the community is a tremendous undertaking on his part as a landowner and a builder and a developer in town. I mean, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar project here that Sam and his brother and his business partner have taken it upon themselves to try to enhance the town and enhance people wanting to come to Northborough. So I applaud you for that, Sam. I also, I had a couple notes here with what Marshall was saying, and we've had multiple ice cream stands fail in town, including the one that was about 300 yards up the street. And I agree completely that Sam needs to diversify to some extent in order to deal with things in the off season and be able to keep his business model going and whatnot. So Marshall, that was perfect. I had that as one of my notes. The only thing that I would like to say is, I do have a commercial and a residential building. I'd like to see the 9, 10 o'clock, definitely not any later than 10 o'clock. I do have a few tenants living in the building next door, but I'm not opposed to whatever Sam needs to get his business up and going. But I completely support this project. I think it's a great thing. I think the kids coming to high school, it's a quick in and out with a healthy breakfast. Because I can tell you right now, it's going to be a hit with the high school and the kids coming in and out of there. And I just applaud Tom Reardon and Mr. Green. You guys had an absolutely phenomenal presentation, and good luck with your project. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you for calling in. All right, Linda Brankel. Linda, if you could just please unmute, please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, hi, Linda Brankel, am at 3 Little Pond Road. I'd like to call your attention to a letter that was written and undersigned by several residents in the area of Little Pond Road on East Main Street about concerns, a couple of concerns for this area. First of all, I personally would like to say, I think this would be a great improvement on the area, which I have to agree is an eyesore currently. And I would love to have an ice cream store close with good quality, good tasting ice cream with good portion sizes. Concerns are limited to a couple of things that are described in the letter that is written by the undersigned residents in the area. We didn't canvass the entire neighborhood. Scott Thornton mentioned that the access via East Main Street was to accommodate access by people in the Little Pond area, Tall Pines neighborhood. But as I said, we didn't canvass the entire neighborhood, just more the abutters. And as described, that East Main Street entrance was to provide access to residents in that area, which in my opinion, the area could be easily accessed without having that East Main Street access there, either by going via Bartlett Street or further down Main Street, East Main Street, to make that right onto Route 20 and access it that way. We're concerned about the safety for the children living across the street and the residents in the area where there's a lot of walking in that area with the increased traffic. We already have a lot of quickly moving cars coming off 20 onto East Main Street, and to increase that traffic area might affect the quality of the neighborhood. I wonder, in listening to this conversation, whether it would make sense to move both the entrance and the exit further east on the property so that cars could enter and exit further east, coming around the back of the parking area to the drive up, and then exiting further down on the property to the east in the same area, thereby avoiding the traffic light and the congestion that may occur there. Just a suggestion. The other concern of some of the residents is the current plant growth that is there now provides somewhat of a sound buffer and rises as high and thick to 30 feet. The planting as proposed is beautiful, but would probably open up that area to more noise coming from not only Route 20, but also this business and the businesses across the way. And so we would like to request a replacement of plantings that maybe go closer to current thickness of plantings and maybe to a height of 20, more consistently 20 feet. Many of the plantings proposed, there are some that rise as high as 30 to 40 feet, but many of them are as low as 4 to 5 feet. And with the downslope on the embankment there, it may not provide the same sound buffer or noise buffer that is in existence. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Yes, sorry for not mentioning this earlier, but Marshall, have you guys received the letter that is signed by, we'll call it 8-10 people with their list of sort of questions with regards to the plantings and then everything else? I just want to make sure that you have that.
Yes, thank you, Paul. It was dated June 25, and we did get it yesterday.
Okay, cool. And then I guess with regards to that, I'll also mention the tree evaluations and recommendations letter from the Leo Simpkins arborist, just sort of providing some of the reasoning or color for why some of those trees along East Main are set to be taken down. And not to get too into the weeds, but basically they're dying because of bugs and stuff. That's my high level, that's my expert opinion there. And Marshall, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
We actually had, instead of me answering, we actually have Larry who spoke earlier, and he is someone who's in the business. So I think he has done this study. Larry, do you want to comment on that?
No, I'll just compliment what the botanist said, that that is an unhealthy plant community due to, right, as I stated, the invasive species in there. There's not a lot of good air circulation. There's a lot of root damage, and then there are a lot of plants that are showing because they're stressed out. The bugs are moving in and causing dieback within the trees.
Okay, and I'll just note that letter from the arborist should be posted on the website for anyone who wants to take a look at the details. But thank you, guys. So next up is S. Youssef. You could just please state your name and address.
Yeah, Stephanie Youssef, 5 Johnson. I just wanted to say, regardless of how he feels, I just wanted to take a quick moment to say that I'm kind of embarrassed by the way that Brad Blanchett has represented the board on this agenda item. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. So next up is Diane Root. If you could please state your name and your address.
Hi, this is Diane Root. I'm at 2A Little Pond Road. We are directly across the street from the proposed business. Yep, right up there. Yep, thank you. We are one of the ones that signed the letter and initiated the letter with regard to our concerns. And again, I would like to just reiterate what Linda said with regard to our general enthusiasm for a business there. We are very happy to have Texas Barbecue and are very supportive in general of small business in Northborough. So we would look forward to trying to work together to figure out an amenable compromise to some of our concerns. I think I would say for most of the folks that I've talked to in our neighborhood. I just want to go back to the question of, and I apologize if this was a part of something that I could have read earlier, but what is the rationale for not having indoor seating at this restaurant? And why is that being taken off the table in lieu of a drive-through, which obviously has a lot more impact to the neighborhood?
Can I answer that, please?
Yes.
Sure.
It's just space. The place is small, and I don't know, maybe Tom can lend a hand here, but a lot of it had to do with the septic system, correct, Tom?
Yeah, the septic system has a capacity for 12. And to run an ice cream operation with the space you need for preparation, storage, and so forth, it just didn't work well.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously with the indoor seating, that was how Texas Barbecue, operated. So that was just kind of a question. I wasn't really sure if that was how different that was going to be for this business and how necessary the drive-through is. I do think that there is a big concern with regard to the traffic in and out on East Main. Linda iterated a lot, and there's more in the letter, so I'm not going to repeat that. But I do think that the dynamic of the neighborhood in terms of the pedestrian safety and the sound barrier and the ability to manage the traffic through the drive-through is a big concern. And I do think that there, if a drive-through is absolutely necessary, I think that there's an opportunity to look at, as the letter said, other options where you would come in earlier on Route 20 and snake back behind the parking lot, so you would not have to get any egress on East Main and then funnel back out. Again, very similar to what Chick-fil-A and Dunkin' Donuts in town and others do. In addition, Dunkin' Donuts has that nice barrier that's, I believe, a commercial grade fence and vegetation that separates the back of that property from the residential area behind it. And that would be something that we would be looking for if we absolutely have to do a drive-through to make this business work. I am very concerned about the hours. Again, we have a lot of impact to the neighborhood if you're talking about a 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. year round, and particularly in and out. A lot of people, if that is the goal, that's a lot of traffic, a lot, speedily moving through. that changes the dynamic a lot of the neighborhood. And I would just ask that we try to consider, anything to minimize that impact so that we can preserve not only safety, but accessibility to the neighborhood, while supporting this business. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. Appreciate it. All right. Tom, you have your hand up. I don't know if you are looking to speak or.
Yeah, I would just like to briefly address the issue of the sound buffering. The plantings that exist now don't offer any buffering, actually. If you can see through the vegetation, there's no sound buffering. So the sound generated by Route 20, you'd need to put some kind of barrier near the source of the sound, which would be along Route 20 or near the recipients of the sound. And you need at least 100 feet thick of plantings to get anywhere like 3 or 5 decibels reduction in sound. So I think the buffering of sound is not possible with vegetation. You need to have to use some kind of structure. And I think the most important thing is the visual screening of the back of the building and the queuing of the cars. That's all I had.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tom. Diane, I see you have your hand up. I thought I lowered it. Do you have anything else to say, or are you all set? Sorry.
This is my husband.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, DJ Route 2A, Little Pond Road, just sitting here next to my wife.
Yep.
I appreciate the gentleman's comments on the sound. I'll take it for what they will, but they do offer a good shield to the road. But concerning the egress on East Main, it seems that the cars coming in off East Main would fight with cars coming off Route 20 into that queue. The design doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not a traffic engineer. I think the concerns brought up in the letter to go around the perimeter of the property make a lot more sense. Segregate the cars from the parking lot, and therefore pedestrians from the cars going to the walk-up will not conflict with the cars. This design as is seems like there would be a lot of conflicts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just want to pipe in one more thing. I apologize, but with all due respect, we live across the street. We do have, I'm looking right now at the foliage. It's very thick there. I can't see through it to Route 20. And I would respectfully disagree that there is a significant sound barrier that we experience on Route 20 with the vegetation as it is. I understand that it needs to change, and I understand why it can't stay, and that's fine. But I would just respectfully disagree. Living here, there is a fair amount of protection that we have from that vegetation onto Route 20. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you calling in. All right.
Almost 11.
Okay. I don't see anyone else's hands up. I think so. Just some quick takeaways. Fred, do you have a list of? So I guess what I would say is just for me, a better understanding on sort of the history of what this project has been from a traffic standpoint, sort of the ideas behind being able to make left-hand turns coming out of there. What other proposals there could be, reaching out to other staff, Fred, whether it's the fire chief with the new plans, like whatever new plans that are going to be presented to design review, making sure that everyone in the town of Northborough, from a staffing perspective, fire chief, police chief, if Scott needs to weigh in from a traffic standpoint, that everyone has a chance to look at this new design and provide comments to it. I had a question, and I don't need an answer on this tonight. Process for changing the speed limit potentially on East Main. I know Route 20 is obviously not our road, but East Main is. I saw that, Fred. I got you.
Sorry, I've I've got to work on my poker face. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And then I guess we can come back to that one. And then just like the process for a crosswalk to Little Pond. But again, I just want to get a sense for what that means, what that entails. That's all. So it doesn't have to be tonight, but
we can look at the, if you want me to give you a couple of quick answers, I can do that.
Sure.
We can look at the crosswalk, the need for a crosswalk. There's some guidelines that we'd have to review to see if they're met. But we have some latitude in putting a crosswalk on East Main Street where we don't on Route 20. Route 20 is a state highway. I think there's some conversation that needs to be had with the Mass DOT regarding the curb cuts on Route 20. I have concerns about the left turn coming out of the drive-through lane being so close to the place where people are pulling in and could be making a left turn coming in to the site. I think there's some room for consideration for relocating those driveway entrances again, at least, if not eliminating one, at least separating the ones on Route 20 by another couple of 100 feet, since there's so much frontage on Route 20. And I think we could restrict a left turn, but if Mass DOT were to override that, they could, and we wouldn't have anything that we could do about it because it's their highway.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the comments from the other staff members, we will be pursuing that with both police and fire and the DPW. Make sure that you get comments from everybody, or that at least we're all on the same page.
Okay, great. Tom, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have something?
No, sorry.
Yep.
Take it down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. So I think at this time, unless anyone else, either staff, I'll go around the staff. Do you guys have anything else to add to this? I think we have some takeaways. There still needs to be a meeting with design review. We still need to sort of go back and sort of, just kind of put a finer point, get some feedback in from town staff. Is there anyone else on the board that has any other comments or questions for the applicant at this time? Okay. So I guess at this time, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, friend.
All right, I move that we continue the petition for 305, 309 Main Street for the special permit for use and special permit for groundwater overlay district and special permit with site plan approval for the operation of a drive-through food service at the existing structure of 305 and 309 Main Street in Business East Zoning District to our July 25th, 2023 meeting at 6 p.m.
Second.
All right. Fran made a motion to continue and Mark seconded. Is a roll call vote. Fran?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Susie?
Aye.
Brad?
Aye.
Yeah, and I'm an aye as well. All right. Thank you, Marshall, Scott, Tom.
Thank you very much.
To the
Have a good night.
board.
Thank you.
Everyone else that was on there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too. And Sam and Larry. All right. Okay. 10:57. Fred. Let's see. So we don't have our minutes for May 23rd. I spoke to Michelle earlier. She will have those for our next meeting, so we'd have nothing to do there. Our next CBA meeting is July 25th at 6 p.m. It will be a lot of cases. There's 2 additional cases on there. I think they are both for some sort of a side setback issue, but we can sort of go through that. Fred, did you want to high level the?
I do.
30 seconds. Give us the elevator pitch.
I have a very brief discussion that I want to present to you to discuss at the next meeting. There's a project that's been complete mostly complete for a number of years and, but the town is still holding a bond for the project on Hudson Street, Denai Gardens, and the applicant is, asked for his money back. I had some outstanding issues with the as-built plan, and I will do a review memo, outlining where we can, come to an agreement on anything that could be done, could be released. The goal is to give him his money back. My plan is to, as I'm retiring on Friday, my plan is not to leave as anything hanging for the next person to try to look back 20 years and resolve. So I will send you a memo on my opinion. Town council and I are conferring with council for the condominium association, or actually the previous owner, the developer, and try to get him some release going forward. But there'll be more details, but hopefully there'll be something on your agenda next month to vote and release the funds for that project.
Okay.
So Fred,
Thank you.
what's going on next couple months? What are you up to?
I will be possibly working part-time for the town, but I will not be attending any more night meetings.
Oh, really? Oh, shocking. Yeah,
If it's at all possible, you won't see me again.
Well, Fred,
Well, so
thank you for your services, buddy. You know, did a great job. Enjoy your retirement, and you know,
Thank you.
see you down the
Thank you.
road.
Thank
Hopefully.
you much. That's the plan.
Yeah.
yes, I will echo that. And Fred, thank you very much for everything you have done for this town. We always appreciate all of your insights and expertise. Too bad that you can't come and hang out with us until 11 o'clock on a random Tuesday
Yeah,
night.
on Tuesday. Yeah, I'm not Fred.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
sure? Are you sure you don't want to?
I just checked my dance card. It's full.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you know we will still be getting some letters from you and you imparting your wisdom on us and the rest of the board. So thank you very much, and we always
thanks,
appreciate
Fred.
it.
Thank you very much.
So,
Thanks.
unless
You're
anyone
very
else
good.
has any other business, do I have a motion?
I
to-
move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Mark made a motion and Fran seconded. Mark, roll call vote.
Aye.
Fran,
aye.
Susie,
Hi.
Brad,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well.